Joe DeGolyer, what's up, dude? It's nice to actually like see you and not just be on like a phone call with you where we just don't see each other's faces. So
It's
it's
true.
you look good. You look healthy. Are you back on keto?
I mean, I wouldn't say keto. I don't think I'm not in ketosis right now. I'm on a low carb diet in general. And the reason I am, for those who don't know, is because I figured out that it puts off my migraines. And so I was doing ketosis to lose weight. And then when I stopped doing ketosis, I started getting migraines all the time. And I was like, looks like I'm going to be on low carb for the rest of my life. I just started getting migraines again though when I was in Colorado, and then I had to cut caffeine, and I haven't had migraines since then either. But it's a continual chasing what exactly is causing my migraines because they make me want to die. Honestly, they're so bad.
Yeah,
Um,
the quest for human optimal efficiency. I'm definitely addicted to caffeine. But I need to pee a ton whenever I drink any caffeine. So I haven't had any caffeine yet today in order to avoid editing this podcast because I hate editing and also like, hey dude, I'm gonna leave you like every 15 minutes because I need to pee because I have the bladder of a pregnant woman. So for the consideration of you, no caffeine, but carbs, I eat carbs because broke boy, gonna eat that ramen, buddy.
you know, they are cheaper. Carbs are about if you don't have to eat a low carb diet, which is a lot of meats and vegetables, all like the fresh fruits, all those things that are in the quantities you need them and the calorie amounts you need
Right.
them, much more expensive than carbohydrates. I get it. I wish I could go back to the time when I would just eat rice. Like I had a bag of rice and that would last me the week. But then I would also gain all my weight back too. And I know that for a fact. So I guess I'd rather be broke than fat.
Well, see, I'm broke and a little bit chubby. I'm not fat. I've lost some weight, but that's only because I'm working out pretty much every day. Like if I wasn't doing that, oh man, I would be a fat boy. I would be in the Craig category if I didn't work out every day.
Uh, yeah, shout out to our past Nude Clan host, Caleb Craig. I still have about 35 more pounds to lose. I gained about 10 pounds back from Colorado to moving here. And I gained 10 pounds because there's now a bunch of food around me. I was living by myself before, and now I'm living with my family. And so I had a lot more control. And now there's food to graze on, and it's causing me issues, bad issues. I got to get control of that. So
Yeah, so
we're all struggling.
yeah, my scale actually lives at Steve's house from when we were roommates, and so I just never got it back after I moved in with my wife. And so I actually don't know how much I weigh, but I just look at my stomach. I'm like, you can do better, bro. And that's just my marker. So when I work out really well for a few weeks, I'm like, all right, getting smaller, looking good. And then when just like I'm working like 10-hour days because I have an out of town trip or something, and then I'm like, oh nope, I'm fat again. Oh, what's happening? It's a vicious cycle, man.
I mean, if you're in a band too, I assume
Oh, the
like if
band
you're
is dead. The
performing and
band is
stuff
pretty
like
much
that.
dead. Not
Oh,
during
is
the
it
COVID.
dead?
Well, basically we were like heading towards a transitionary phase anyway because I've always considered myself more of a writer than a musician. And I did the music thing, but my passion has always been for books and literature. But I said, man, I can write books whenever. Like, if I want to do the rock star thing, I got to do it while I'm young because no one wants to see like some dude in his 50s being like, I'm going to make it. I swear, dude, my band is about to break big. Like, that has happened in history, but most of the time it's embarrassing. So I viewed my youth as a resource. I'm like, all right, I'm going to give it 10 years. If in 10 years I haven't made like the majority of my income from music, then it's like, okay, switch to this thing I like better that I'm better at. And so that's what I've been working on. So got one screenplay done, another screenplay which I was talking about with you, almost done. Another extended writing project that I'm working on with a co-writer. and a top secret project that I can't announce now because it's a surprise. But I'm keeping myself very busy, and I like it more than music. And the thing is, I still get people asking me to do music, which is annoying. Like one of my musical heroes, like great mastering engineer, one of the best guys in the business. Like I view him as like an absolute genius, won 4 Grammys. And so he texted me during the pandemic, he's like, "Bro, do you want to record?" And I'm just like, "Oh man, my home recording equipment sucks." But also, you're like one of the people I respect most in the industry. Why are you reaching out to me after I'm quitting, bro? Could have done it 5 years ago. But I'll
Should have done it anyway, honestly.
I mean, I don't have the mics for it, but he's yeah. The thing is, like, we're still friends, so like, I'm actually now that the talk show is back, I'm probably gonna bring him on the show, and maybe I can borrow a mic from Steve and record because like he's one of the best drummers I've ever heard in my entire life, the best mastering engineer I've ever heard. Period. Like. So much of my high school lunch money went to his remasters, and then I told him that, and he's like, "Well, that's not really how it works, but thanks, dude." But yeah, I mean, I would love to work with him, and I'll still do music, but it's not the focus. As you get older, you realize like go where your strengths are. Don't spend a bunch of time working on stuff that because I'm at best a mediocre musician. I'd say I'm a good songwriter and a mediocre musician.
I thought you did pretty good with the soundtrack that you made for our movie.
Oh well, thanks. Like I said,
And
good
I think that
songwriter.
if
I
you were
can
to do
compose
that
well.
again, I think it'd be even better for whatever the next major project you did. So I don't know if that's necessarily true. I've never seen your writing, so I can't compare
I
it
mean,
to
well, you've heard
anything.
my writing. I mean that is my writing. So you've
No,
heard.
right, like
Oh,
screenwriting.
this screenwriting. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
the thing is, you just kind of know. It's like as far as the writing goes, for a number of years, I was doing writing for Sleaze Rocks as a journalist, and I got more popular with that than with
Oh,
the
that's right.
band, and people liked my articles and essays and reviews more than the band stuff. And so like you just kind of know, like Michael Jordan just knew he was better at basketball than baseball. Like you kind of figure it out. And so it's like as a songwriter, I think I have more niche tastes. So like I write stuff that appeals to me, but I think as a storyteller, I maybe can relate to someone in a way where they might not relate to oh, I don't understand 70s glam rock and like the eccentricities with that, but I do understand the hero's journey. Like you can grab someone a bit easier with storytelling than with songwriting if dependent on the subject matter, obviously. But there's a reason why the film industry isn't as dead as the music industry in a number of ways. There's a reason why, we're living in a golden age of streaming and television and content coming out with, a desire for storytelling as music is just, largely forgotten about in the market.
I guess like people's attachment to music is not as strong as it used to be, just because of the kind of playlist marketplace that there is now. But there is way more music than there was before, at least available to you at a moment's notice. So it depends on how for the consumer. I think there's way more music, and there's way more opportunities for the artist. It's harder to make a good living off of it, for sure. So when you're saying like the film industry is stronger, it also, whatever happens to the music industry, the film industry can see it happening it's got about a 10-year gap
Right.
before it starts happening to the movie industry, and they can kind of put chess pieces in place a little better. But I think the same problems are happening in the film industry. I think the middle market is being kind of washed away, and everything's either really expensive or really cheap to produce. Less so in television, but as more and more channels and streaming services come up, it's going to be the same thing. There's going to be like those networks or those streaming services will have their kind of 3 shows they're willing to spend millions of dollars on, and then there's going to be like the really cheap stuff. It's kind of going to be like foreign television in that way. It's going to be a new place. It's going to be a new day.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I'm looking forward to that because I think it's made in a number of ways. I feel like we've gotten better entertainment through this process. Like it's as people are taking their time to choose what to watch. Like I don't know. I'm enjoying the stuff I'm finding on streaming services rather than the cable box and just the myriad of crap and not being able to control what you watch when.
I think for the consumer though, the difficulty is finding out like what's good and what's quality. When all that was kind of worked out through commerce on cable. That's the difference there.
Yeah, but
I think
I
you
don't
can
know.
maybe look at like award nominations, which do help, or things like that. But
I
I
think I think word of
it's
mouth through the
different. It's
internet is
different.
what's working, and I think that the meritocracy of the cable era, I just think is just a flat out lie. If you just think of like all the crap reality television and stuff,
No, you're right. You're right about that. You're definitely right about that. But everybody knew it was time to watch Seinfeld at a certain point in time.
right?
And you don't get anything like that. We had for a brief period of time House of Cards because Netflix wasn't pumping out a million shows at once, and it was like this one, at least the first two seasons, like this great show. Holy crap, everybody get on Netflix, watch House of Cards. That kind of petered out. And then now there's so much stuff. So I couldn't tell you like what's the new biggest streaming show right now. There's just so many, and there's so many different niches, and
Right.
it's not really bringing us together as a culture, which I kind of miss, like having those kind of big things. So there are still big movies, and maybe if like Amazon Prime or Netflix pushes a show really hard, like you could have some sort of cultural wave,
Hmm.
but it's less strong. So you gain some, you lose some in that way. I'm not a really big TV watcher. I'm still not, even though I recognize there's a lot of good TV out there. There's still so many movies I'd rather I want to watch, and I feel like movie or TV time takes that away from me. But I'm the minority there for sure.
I mean, I get that. Like, I try to have what I call a media budget where I want to make sure that I'm being productive throughout my day and getting stuff done because I just hate the idea of like standstill. And I also hate the idea of like people talking big and not accomplishing anything. And as a musician, it was
We agree
much
on that.
yeah, as a music as a musician, it was much easier to like get stuff done because like okay, boom, doing a show, sold 20 T-shirts, had a great set, networked with the band, released a single. Like there's a much faster turnaround with writing. It's so much more solitary, and you know this, and it takes a really long time. And you insist with people, I am working and I am getting stuff done, but no one fucking believes you. It just looks like you're just sitting in your room, but you are getting so much done. And so it's kind of as someone who went from like the one extreme, just like the constant like adoration to the extreme solitude, it has been an abrupt shift. But I do find the quality of the work to be less compromised and more rewarding, especially because music is so collaborative and writing. I'm working on something with a co-writer, and I understand with film when you're writing and then it becomes collaborative, but the process of writing itself is usually at least for me it's like it's solitary, and I'd like that control over the creative vision. It feels so much more fulfilling, and also you have no one to blame but yourself. If stuff doesn't get done, it's your fault. It's not him or her or oh my bandmate showed up high and fucked up the set. No, it's you are the only person who controls the quality of things, the timeline, whether or not things get done. I prefer that control and personal responsibility.
You're right. I do like doing the podcast at the same time as doing the film stuff. There was a point in time where I stopped doing the podcast, or at least the other big podcast, and just kind of like I wanted to focus all on film, and then that just turned into its own debacle there. But right now, I'm juggling both pretty well, I'd say, and I do like kind of the instant thing and the part of me that's an extrovert that kind of like gets my rocks off on the podcast end of things, basically weekly. And then And then at the same time, yeah, there is when I go to a script specifically, and I used to hate writing, and now I don't. Writing is something I more and more enjoy now. I used to just force myself to do it. Um, with the writing, it is kind of like, okay, this is my thing. I have my goals for it, and then suddenly there's a script at the end of the day, and I can shove that to someone, and then I get my praise that way, because usually people don't finish big writing projects like that. I think most creative people have thought about writing, and hardly anyone has finished anything, like the first draft of anything. So you usually get like a little bit of like, ooh, I did something at the
Right.
end of a script, regardless of whether or not it's a good story or not.
Oh yeah,
Do
I love being task oriented and completion oriented. Leaving things unfinished just drives me nuts. And I am annoyed that I have like several novels that are unfinished, and I hate
mm,
that. But I also started those during the band era, and then when the band got super busy, it's just like I don't have time to write a book. And so then when it's like, oh, those aren't the most economic projects that are like the best prospects for me in 2021, shit, those are still unfinished. That's annoying. But like I said, I did get at least one screenplay done last year. You know,
I got I got quite a few. COVID was a good time for me on the first drafts for
yeah.
sure.
Well, it was my first full screenplay, and it was more just me trying to get practice with like writing for spec and just getting used to the format. And it's so different than novels, and actually I like it a lot less because novels you can just go ham. You can just write pretty much whatever the hell you want, make it, fully descriptive. And then with a screenplay, it's like get it down to the bare minimum and
It's a
like
minimum. It's a minute a page.
trim,
Yeah.
minute a page. And it's like, man, I think it's more difficult. I think it is more difficult to tell a good story in a screenplay than in a novel.
I've never been able to write more than like 3 chapters of any novel I ever started, so I couldn't tell you which one's more difficult. I know I can finish screenplays, and that's the difference. Of course, maybe I want it more. I've never thought of like, except when I was in middle school for a brief period, I never wanted to be a writer. I've always been making little movies
Hmm.
with my friends, and um, there was always, when I was a teenager, it was either rock star or film director, both impossible things. Um, whatever I want to do, whatever I want to do, it has to be really tough to make a living off of. But it was basically, yeah, I always wanted to direct something, and the thing is, I could never find a decent writer. I didn't even have scripts when I was making little short dumb films. You can see a lot of them on YouTube. As a teenager, we would just make it up as we went along, and so directing to me was kind of like a social thing and also a visual thing, and it was experimental.
And also, it's
Uh,
nice being the boss. It's nice being like the head of something.
I guess for me, I'm a control freak, so that is a part of it for sure. But
Ah, come on, we both are.
it was
We both
never
like being at
writing.
the top.
It was never writing. And then like I watched an interview when I was 19. Watched an interview with Akira Kurosawa on the DVD of one of the releases I was borrowing from the UVU library, and there was a question from one of the guides. You can see this interview online. There was a question from the interviewer asking him, what advice do you have for future directors? And the guy goes, and Akira Kurosawa goes, learn how to write screenplays. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. And I've written I've averaged about a screenplay a year. I'm on my 12th screenplay right now.
Nice. Well, hey,
Yeah.
congrats on that. I mean, I am a
As a
no.
personal accomplishment, it doesn't mean anything
Well, no,
to anybody else. But
hey, personal goals are important because they lead into professional goals. Me, I've only written one screenplay, and that one was just like that was pretty quick to write. That was just like a couple weeks in between working full time. Like doing all the stuff while working full time is the and also having like a wife who like, hey babe, spend time with your significant other sometimes.
Yeah.
is where it gets tricky. But this other screenplay, I think because like I actually have big hopes on selling it, I keep refining it. It's taking so much longer, and I'm just like, ah, come on, just be done, be done, you stupid bastard. I've spent so much time on you already.
Yeah, it's difficult with screenplays. So I've never like broken in to anything. So we've made the one movie. We've made 13th Cross. It has a distributor. They haven't put it out yet,
I
which
would
is
love
really
to tell people
frustrating.
to watch it, so people because
Yeah.
people every now and then ask me like, "Hey, did that movie you did the score for come out yet?" I'm like, "Sort of." It was at a film festival that I didn't go to because of COVID.
It was at a film festival. It was pretty fun time going there, by the way.
I was so bummed because I was ready to go aside from COVID, but just because like I don't know how it would affect others in my household, I'm like, ah man, calculated
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, I won't go. But I was like, I
I
was ready to go because I had some Utah buds. I was like, I was ready to party. I was like, hell yeah, film festival,
hard party in Utah.
hard
So
straight edge party in Utah.
no, so it's difficult with screenplays. So basically the way to break in with screenplays is you either like win one of the major contests, you make a movie regardless of whether or not you know anybody or you know someone.
Yeah, so I know
So
someone. So it's just a matter of
okay,
like
good.
getting the quality thing done
So
is
as
the
long
trick.
as they're and the trick there I would guess would be make it so good that that person is willing to brag about your screenplay to an agent or whoever they know.
Yeah, that's why it's taken so long because I want to make sure that like it is bulletproof.
Yeah,
But
that's a good strategy.
it is so like I said, if it was a book, I'd be like it'd be done by now because I just like it flows out easier. I get into the rhythm and just like boom 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 boom. And just I don't know, I'm a sucker for prose and the beauty of the English language and descriptiveness. And then screenplays just like he did this thing. I'm like,
Okay, you're saying that. You got to read the Michael Clayton screenplay. The way that it's written, and it's beautiful prose, but it's minimalist prose. And so that I would suggest reading that if you haven't already.
yeah, I've
Uh,
read a few screenplays. I haven't read that one, but I've tried to
read
see.
the Michael Clayton one specifically, because of the way that the prose is done. If I feel lost in a screenplay, or like if I feel like I've lost the format or something in my
Mhm.
head, I just pick up that thing, read like a page of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is how the screenplays are supposed to be written, and it makes it. I don't know. There is a beauty to it. It's a different kind though. It's not purple prose. It's not extensive like that. But the minimalist prose can be wonderful in its own way.
No, it's true. Like the thing is, I've read screenplays that are minimalist, but like you still feel charm in there. And so it's trying to find that balance where like you can still feel vibrancy and life despite being minimalist. Like I've read the Rocky screenplay has a lot of charm. Frozen Ratatouille had more charm than the movie actually. The Ratatouille screenplay was like, oh man, you and I liked the movie, but just like something about the way the words leapt off the page, just gave it a different vibe. So, but I haven't
Yeah,
read the Michael
I
Clayton one.
always wonder. I always wonder with those animated ones, because the process at Pixar and Disney, and I don't know if it's the same with DreamWorks, but they have a weird writing process over there. Like it's really strange. I mean, it works obviously, and it just takes forever. But their kind of management system, I don't know if you ever read Creativity Inc. or anything like that, but they're not written in a normal writing environment. It's kind of a back and forth conversation between people doing storyboards and people writing and the producers of the film. So I don't know if I would read one of those screenplays, like assuming this is how a screenplay is supposed to be written. But if you say it's like that good, then there must be something to that. So that's interesting to hear that like that screenplay is even published. I didn't even know they published those screenplays at
Oh, you
all.
can find so many screenplays that are just out there. Like I read the Fellowship of the Ring screenplay just because
That's gotta be
I'm
impossible.
that is a wild screenplay to just try to read. It's like, oh man, how'd you do this, bro? How'd you do
I
this?
Yeah, I read a little bit of it, and I was just like, "This." If this had come across to me, I'd be, "I can't read this," but it works in the movie, so
Right.
they knew what they were
I
doing.
mean, however they do it, they nail it. But once again, I think the trick is for me with screenplays. It's like someone who understands Spanish but isn't really fluent in it. That's how I am with screenplays versus novels. Like novels, my first language, my fluency, and then screenplays like yeah, I can do it. I can get the job done, but it's not as natural. And so shifting into that state of being is a conscious process. But I did the same thing with songwriting where my natural playing style doesn't sound anything like the lipstick stuff. It's much more like bluesy, like the Doors and the Stones. And so I had to consciously put myself in a headspace to write the kind of stuff that I wanted because if I just let myself riff, that's what I would come up with.
Well, I wonder, Greg. I've never heard your non-lipstick pop songs. I would say,
Yeah, pop's fair, I
uh,
guess.
pop or rock songs. You know what I mean? It's not orchestral. Uh, so why didn't you explore that direction ever?
I didn't like it as much. And the thing is, when you're paying for studio time, you have to consider like what is the most marketable product, what is the most cohesive whole that you can come up with together. And so when you have, because I have at this point, I can safely say like I had by the time I graduated high school, I had over 450 songs written. I stopped counting after that point. But
Sure.
if someone told me like Greg, if we added up all the songs, you're over 1,000, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. Sure. Um, and they're of wild varying styles because I like a lot of different stuff. So like I've got some jazzier songs, got some bluesier songs, but it's like okay, I can record 12. What is the musical vision that I'm going for, and what is something that doesn't clash too much? And so like because I like eclecticism and I like mixing things up and I don't want every song in the album to sound the same necessarily but also you don't want to confuse the audience too much. And actually, we came across that problem with the second album, where the first album actually sold well and was well received, and then the second album, people were confused by it.
I think that second album is way better than the first album. Way
Well,
better.
you're in the vast minority in that. I think that um, the first album, I think, just rocks harder and is more consistent in that. Um, I think my vocals are terrible on both albums, so I think that's kind of a wash. But the second album has some Steve vocals, and those are good. So by that standard, better album.
No, I thought there was much more polish to the second album. First off, which is obvious because you made it later, but then also I thought the songwriting was stronger and more catchy, and it felt like you guys were. It felt a little bit more natural. It didn't feel like you guys were trying to do something like a. You weren't putting on like a facade of that glam rock thing. Like it felt more. I don't know. It felt more true.
I mean,
I would say.
it was a more natural in a way where like some of the songs were leftovers that weren't on the first album. And then some of the songs were like based upon like feedback from our live show. So as we developed a relationship with our audience, certain songs developed out of that. Like "Gotta Eat When You Can" and "Girl Just a Sailor Moon" because we got booked at anime conventions, and so because the anime kids were into us, I'm like, well, I guess the anime kids deserve an actual good power ballad, because most songs written for the anime market, in my opinion, are pretty shitty. So I'm like, I guess I'll write you guys an actual good song, and um, and so because we had that back and forth with our audience, that's the album sort of naturally evolved that way. But I think the problem was is that the first album actually sold well like all over the world. So like we would be shipping off CDs to Europe and Australia and like Brazil and all over the place. But the second album was made with our live audience in mind and not necessarily the international market. And so as we had been playing a bunch of shows around like Greater Tennessee and some light touring here and there, when you're it's a different audience and so we lost that old audience as we gained that new one, but that newer audience was more fickle, and as they moved on to the next trend, we were left without both audiences. So
Okay.
it was just it was what felt like the right decision at the time, and I like those songs. I stand by those songs, but I can see how in the long run it ended up being a detrimental move. But I still like the songs, so I don't feel any shame in putting out a bunch of songs that I like.
So that book I sent you, Art and Fear. Um, there's a reason I really like connect with that book. It felt to me because I mean, there's a couple lessons in that book. One is the parable of the pots. Do you remember that?
It's been years since I've read it, so
Okay, I'll rehash it for those listening. The parable of the pots is a pottery teacher has a full class of students, and said, okay, I'm gonna grade you on. I'm gonna grade you two different ways. Splits the classroom in half. One half of the classroom will be graded on their best pot. Okay, so how good their best pot is, and then the other half of the classroom was going to be graded on how many pots they produced over the semester. And what happens is that the class, or the half of the class that makes more pots, ends up making better pots than the ones who are graded on quality only. So that was one lesson that I thought was great from that book.
yeah, that drives me nuts with the screenplay that's taken forever. Where I'm just like, I keep fixing
Oh,
it.
what that means is, yeah. So there's a type of I guess a perfectionism in a lot of artists that you kind of have to when
You
you're,
have to let
especially
go.
when you're in a learning stage. It's just like, just make things, keep on making things, and don't and you can come back to it, but the more you make stuff, the better that stuff will actually be, as opposed to like, okay, this is my first novel. Oh my gosh, there's I'm not going to say names here. There is a person making films locally that had been working on one script from the time that this person was 15 to the time that they were like 30, and they actually made the movie. The movie is absolute junk. Absolute junk. But it was their pet project from the time that they were 15. And it's like, it's sad. This person could have been making a movie, like
You made a
could have been
mistake by
writing
gendering. You made
I
a
know, I
mistake.
know.
Now
Whoops.
you narrowed the field down to
Yeah, I
people
know.
who identify as female.
This person could have been could have been writing a script a year or a script every 6 months. And maybe this idea that they had when they were a teenager could have been 90 times better just because of the experience that they would have gained making all those things, and kind of just like making things and letting it go. The other thing that I think is great about that book, that I like to remind myself, I listen to that book about once a year. It's only like, the audio is 4 hours long or something. It's nothing. Just to remind myself that, like, when you're talking about sales and stuff for it, this is what for your band, this is what kind of reminded me of that. Was like, it's not about that. Like, you have personal goals, you have financial goals, maybe you as a band have financial goals or whatever, but it is the making of the art that is the goal. It's not to have, not necessarily to have written, but it is to write for yourself. That as the artist should be the goal. And one of the funny phrases from that book, one of the funny quotes from that book, I think they're quoting someone else in the book, but it's when business people get together, they talk about art. When artists get together, they talk about money. And it's one of those things that like underlines the silliness of that. Like, should just be enjoying our art and living the artist's life. And so yeah, I honestly, I think that second album's way better. I think
Well, it
maybe
sold about the first one sold about 10 times more and sold so well. We had a special edition that also
fair
sold
enough.
extremely well. And so when you see that steep of a cliff, even though I'm like, I like these songs, I think it's great, you're like, we done fucked up. Like, that's just
Maybe.
Because I like making stuff for the art, but the rest of the band needs to be paid. It's
Fair
not
enough.
just me. I have a bad wrist. I can't play all the instruments myself. I need to pay my guys. If I don't make enough to pay them, I can't make more. And
Fair,
that's where the
fair
issue
enough.
comes in.
So are you guys completely broken up now or
No,
what?
the thing is, Steve and I are still like best friends and collaborators. And I
Okay.
have some, and the thing is, we had a album that we were working on that got immediately halted because of COVID. So we had a follow up. Um, and we'll still do stuff like we have a whole bunch of songs like written and demoed, and we could like get together a release, but it's just not the priority right now. It's just we're not broken up, but we just have other things going on. And for me, it's like I've been spending so much time writing, and I like it better. And the
Mm,
the politics of band stuff and like the thing is, money is involved with collaborators. And it's
yeah.
like you have to pay this person and pay this person. And when I'm struggling financially, personally, I have the option of like writing, which is more fulfilling, truer to my soul, makes me happy, costs no money. Working with the band, which when the song is done and it's released, I'm happy. And when I'm writing it, I'm happy. But the recording, the organization, studio time, paying dudes, that stuff sucks. And I hate that shit. And promoting, like, man, fuck all that. And so it's like, man, this part is just really fun pretty much the whole way through. It doesn't cost me anything. I'm just going to do this right now.
No, you're right about all that. There is another thing to consider. Um, I do think, yeah, follow your bliss. You know, Joseph Campbell. If you're feeling stronger about the writing thing, then just go for it. But you don't have to shove the music all the way. And a lot of people, Greg, I know you're in Nashville, so that's kind of the city where people are trying to be professionals. A lot of people just do music for fun, even in bands. It might be hard to find collaborators who feel that way in
Oh,
Nashville.
in Nashville, it's hard because like the people I know, like, hey, we're gonna be opening up for Alice Cooper in a couple months. I'm like, oh, that's cool, bro. Like one of them was on the last album. Like the thing is, like the unfortunate problem is that we set a certain bar of quality with those albums in terms of the instrumental players, and I can't step down from that bar of quality. And the guys who are cheaper, you get what you pay for. Like I have a certain, like, it's not perfection. It's just like I expect what I produce to be of a certain level of quality. I understand when I need to let go, obviously because my vocals are on those albums. Um, but like I understand there's a certain point where you have to let go, but there's a certain point where like you don't want to put out something that's just like flat out embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put out stuff that I find to be of embarrassing quality. Like it can be, embarrassing because someone might think it's too goofy or dumb. But like I'm fine with that. But as long as you think like the playing is good.
Interesting. I totally have like almost almost polar opposite kind of view on that. Because I mean, it just depends on what the thing is, whether it's not my films or my music or my podcast. Like
Oh,
the
YouTube
quality
and
is
podcast, the quality. I'm like, man, whatever, it's going out. You're getting this shit
the
for free.
the quality is all over the place for my stuff, all over the place. Because it just depended on like the mood I was in when I made the thing. Or like technical hiccups or whatever, and it's like, well, I'd rather have this out there than not. So I don't
All
know.
right. Well,
And
but
I have my old high school short films. They're terrible, but I don't know. I just put them out. Who cares?
yeah,
it
but
doesn't mean it doesn't mean that I'm any less of a filmmaker with I guess with Emmanuel song, which was a much higher quality than those things, or with 13th Cross, or the next movie, which will, I think
the
that's
quality keeps
script will
going
be
up.
even better. Yeah, it doesn't mean that like I suck now because I have this other kind of crappy stuff out there. Like I am as an artist, whatever I'm making right now. Um, and kind of screw the rest. I don't know. I have a totally different view on that. Like I have like junks. I have really well recorded songs, and then I have junk songs that I put them all out.
Yeah,
I don't care.
I get that, but I guess like so when I've had I wouldn't call myself a successful musician, but I'd say I'm more successful than like a lot of guys at the local level. Like
Sure, yeah.
so I
More successful than my band ever was,
you
for
know
sure.
I got to meet with I've won multiple battles of the bands. I've met with a major record label, got shot down, but most bands don't even get in the room. So
Yeah, they don't even.
to get in the room feels like an accomplishment. And with the amount of CDs I've sold, like I would I just don't want to put out something that's at least at the same level. Because like I've consistently done stuff at that same level. I haven't dipped below that level. And so if I'm going to put out something with that name and that'd be what we do because I don't want to pay for a new like name to release stuff under on all the streaming service because that's like another $30 a year. So like if I'm going to spend the money paying musicians and like paying to put it out there and get on the streaming services, I want to be at least of the same quality of stuff I've done before because if I'm just going to pay a little bit less and then it sucks, I'm not going to be happy listening to it. If I'm going to make it, I want to enjoy the product as a consumer. And if I'm not enjoying it as the consumer, why did I bother making it?
Fair enough. Fair enough. I get sometimes I get I think with my last two films, I was definitely like, this has to be as good as I can make it right now. And I still feel that way about the films because so many people are involved. But I feel a little different about music,
Well,
honestly.
make the
And I
stuff for
feel
the
different
audience
about
of you.
podcasts too. If I was making like dumb little short films with my friends, I wouldn't care. But Emmanuel's song cost a couple grand, which a lot of listeners helped out on. And then 13th Cross was the same way. And it was like, okay, I'm gonna make this as good as I can right now.
Which I helped out
Uh,
on and helped out on.
Thank you.
I did all the helping with that one.
Thank you. People will get their Indiegogo rewards eventually when the movie actually comes out. I have a list of like who needs what somewhere around my desk, and just waiting for that company to put it out. So I'd like to do a little update on that, I guess. So the movie that you did the score for and that I wrote and directed, a little $9,000 movie that we made. Was it got picked up by Ben Yenny's company, Mutiny Pictures. And what had happened, so we've been pushed off 3 times. And I'm not necessarily, I'm frustrated by it, but I'm not angry, I guess. So I can kind of discuss what's going on here. The first time we were pushed off is because Mutiny Pictures got some big South by Southwest title and pushed their entire slate out of the way so that they could deal with that. So we got pushed off then. And we were going to come out like fall of last year. We got pushed off then. And then they had, behind the scenes, they had a deal going out with like another big distributor who I will not mention. But if you know distribution, you know the name of this company. And they were going to take all their movies. They were going to take a whole slate. I guess they didn't sign the deal. And then the other company got cold feet. And so they only ended up putting out like 2 movies with this big company. So we got pushed again. And now, as of like a month ago, a deal was signed with some digital assets company, and we should be coming out in 4 to 5 months from now. That's the last I heard about it.
Merry Christmas, starring the 13th Cross. A holiday
And
classic.
I'm so distant from that movie now because it's like it's in the background so much. I'm working on my next thing, right?
You know what's funny about that? As
What?
I remember, like what a time crunch it was to like get the score done in time,
I know.
which is like annoying in retrospect when it takes like 4 years or whatever to come out. Because I listened back to that score and think to myself, if I had more time, there are like things I would have done and I would have liked to have done it better. I mean, but also, I am a professional. I get the job done and I make it of a quality that I'm proud of. But it's like, oh man, I would have liked to have done more. But that
We
was that
all
was a
feel that
mega
way.
time crunch. That was a
We all feel
massive
that
time
way.
crunch.
What I was feeling on the when I watched it with the audience on the premiere, I was just like watching it going, I could have trimmed a few seconds off of that, could have trimmed a few seconds off of that, could have trimmed a few frames there, should have done that differently, should have done that differently. Like that's all I could feel when I was in the back. Like I had to keep on leaving the theater because I was just like felt so uncomfortable. But no one else is feeling that. They're just
Right,
watching a
they're just
movie.
watching the movie and they're
Uh,
sucked in or
yeah,
on
and
their
I
phone, one of the two.
hopefully I didn't see anybody on their phone. I will tell you that the first F word happened, and an entire family of like 8 people walked out of the theater.
I mean, you're in Utah, bro.
They were okay. Hold on. They were okay because before that happens, there's a very violent scene, or at least it implies violence. They were okay with that, but there was one F word, and then they all walked out.
I mean,
Thought that was
that
funny.
does sound like religious conservatives.
It's ridiculous. It's like if you're worried about all content and like F word is like the place where you walk out, well then someone's head exploding should be, the first place.
I mean, yeah, the
Yeah.
weird like morality of American Christians where it's like you can't swear and you can't show like anyone having healthy consensual sex, but like violence, hell yeah, bro. Shoot 'em up.
Yeah, I believe it's some sort of consistency. It's like you have your own kind of place that you're willing to go, but I don't know. Try to find your hypocrisies and carve them out of yourself as much as you can.
Oh yeah, the thing is
Uh,
like we're all hypocrites. We're all hypocrites, Moses. Oh shoot, spoilers
yeah,
for the movie. But we're all hypocrites in our own way. And like I said, you try your best to find your blind spots. Um, and of course you miserably fail, but you try. Damn it, you try.
you try to get rid of that cognitive dissonance issue, right?
Right.
So try to live in harmony in some sort of way. I don't know. I do get lost in the weeds on that kind of subject, but I made an entire film about it. So
I think that's
uh,
I think that's like everyone who goes through the I become disillusioned with American Christianity. I have to make some piece of art about it. Like I think you said on one podcast, like there's certain films or like that everyone makes, like the I'm coming out film, like the gay film. Uh,
everybody,
there were a couple others, but I think one that was definitely left off the list was like I am an American Christian
how
disillusioned
dare
by
you?
American Christianity. Look, we all do it. I've got a book that's that. It's not
Fair
done,
enough.
but like we all do that, bro. All of us who
Yes,
just like looked at them like, wait, hold on, something's not adding up.
the two movies going through film school, the two movies you will see the screenplays of, short or feature length, it doesn't matter, will be I'm Coming Out as Gay script and the breakup film. That's the other one.
You got to have
And you're
the
like,
I'm an American disillusioned by Christianity. That's the third one. That is the holy trinity of
I
films
didn't
for
ever
film
read
school
that.
kids.
I didn't ever read that. I
That's
just
because you
decided to
wrote
write it.
it. You're part of the trinity.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The Trinity. Um, I don't know. I think there might be a new. I think there might be a new version, which is insert. Uh, what would I say? How can I say this in the correct fashion?
I already know what you're gonna say, and you can't.
Okay, then we will skip.
Yeah, but
There is a new everybody writes this movie genre.
yes, there
Um,
is, and
and
we
it's
both know what it is, and
clogging up the system.
and we both feel like continuing to try and to work in the system, and so we're not gonna say what it is.
And then I hope people are like, what? What are they talking about? Um, no, but you got to write through those. That's why it's important to make a bunch of pots, right? I wrote both those scripts, both of them.
I mean,
And then I went into film school after I'd written those scripts and be like, oh no, everybody writes these scripts.
yeah, I mean, I tried my best for the script I was writing to. The first screenplay I wrote was trying not to be one of those scripts, and it ended up just being like, oh, here's just a slice of life picture, which I wrote with the express intent of just like, hey, just in case I can actually make this during COVID, let's just keep this to a really small cast.
Oh, I did the same thing. My next movie is that.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. So you're just like, pragmatism, the beauty of screenplays.
I wrote a screenplay with 3 characters that takes place in my parents' house. Like I wrote it to do that, and it's my next movie. I don't know if we'll actually film it in my parents' house. And there
Oh
was a lot of
yeah, I
I
remember you
went
telling me
through
about that one.
9 drafts of this thing, but it's I'm really excited about it. I think it's really good. I I've had very I've had almost no negative feedback, and I've showed it to about a dozen people.
Oh, you wanted to read it and shit on it?
You
I'm
can,
busting your
yeah,
balls.
I could send it to you. You can see what you can do. But the person, my best friend from childhood, he's the hardest person to please. He'll just tell you if he doesn't like it. Like he's not one of those guys who sugarcoats things. And he was like, yeah, this is good. This is weird. This is weird.
Oh yeah, another great thing about like semi-retiring from music is that like I don't have to network with other bands, and so like I don't have to pretend their bands are good if I don't think they're good, or I just like I just hate the politics of that because
Still have to network, dude.
yeah, no, I know I still have to network, but I do like the escaping of the music network, and I think that just burnt me out. It's just all the politics involved. But yeah, I know. I mean, we're networking right now. We are continuing our networking relationship.
I feel like we already collaborated, so
Yeah,
it's just like okay.
we're
Like
keeping the
if someone
network
asks for
open.
a if someone's looking for a someone's looking for a musician, I usually say, well, you can talk to Greg, see if he wants it. But if you don't want to do music anymore,
No, I still. Hey, I'll take the gig. Like the thing is, like, no, I'll still. It's not that I don't want to do music. I don't want to make it be a pain in the ass to do. So
well,
like,
what I liked about your score, sorry,
go ahead.
what I liked about your score that other people don't do is that you had like motifs and they would repeat throughout the thing, and there was like a structure to it, and you were going along with the story. I thought, honestly, most the composers that let's say my friends have used, I watch their films at local little film festivals, and
Low hums.
they don't. I mean, that's one, and that might be the director being like, I want this to sound like, you know, knockoff Hans Zimmer always. That's fair. So it might be their fault, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, well, there's some thought put into this score, and sometimes, and I see these other films, and I don't think it's there. It's almost like I don't know. It just sounds like they're trying to do film score, just
Right.
stock film score music, and they're not really thinking about the story as much. So I appreciated that about your score. I think that's that for the budget level that we're on. I couldn't have asked for anything better.
Well, thank you. I mean, the thing is, I try to make something that I would enjoy. I like motifs, and I'm not gonna half-ass it. Like I'm gonna do the absolute best job I can. Like when I'm given a job, I do the best job that I can. Like I was in this band where I was the touring bassist, and there was one song in the set I just thought was absolute shit. I hated the song. I thought the songwriting was trash. But I performed like extra during that song, so the crowd didn't know that I thought the song sucked. And so the band thought it was my favorite song in the set. I'm like, no, I think the song blows. I told them after the tour, I thought, like, no, that song fucking sucks. But
It's just commitment. That's what
it's
you're
commitment.
all about. Yeah.
You do the best you can, and I care about characters, I care about story, themes, and ways that things can be interwoven together. And I guess that's what I would have if I had more time. I would have like expanded the motifs. And, like you would have just gotten more of that lusher instrumentation. So it's not like I'm
I mean,
not
if we had
happy with
more
what I
money,
did.
we would have.
Right.
I would have hired the orchestra.
Right. But
We would
but
have done it
but you know what I'm
live
saying.
scoring sessions.
You know what I'm saying. Like but like my goal, I'm influenced by the really old school catchy film score composers, because why would I bother listening to a film score for a modern film where there's like no motifs? Like, I don't care. Like, you're going to be listening to Jurassic Park and Star
Well, we
Wars.
we grew up in the 90s, and that was like peak strong melody scoring,
Yeah,
I
and with the
think.
video games that we grew up with, or like
That's true.
Uematsu, just like motifs up the wazoo. Like, that's just like what you just assumed orchestral music, or like that kind of like atmospheric music is supposed to sound like. And
Yeah,
then,
it's not so much mood piece,
right.
it's not so much just kind of background noise, but it is in art in it within itself, while also supporting the imagery or the story of the film. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I totally agree. I sent you like Bernard Herrmann scores to listen to and crap like that.
Yeah, and
Like
I listened to those, like,
really strong stuff.
and I just said, okay, this is what he's going, this is what he wants. And I think that's also an important thing when in my opinion, when you're collaborating with someone and someone comes to you, like, try to give them what they want, and try not to be like a stickler about like, but this is what I want. Like, as a collaborator where I've worked with other people, and like, I bring them in and I have this idea, and they're like, I want to completely throw away your idea and rearrange it and turn it into this. And 99% of the time, it's just a guitar player who wants to solo, and it's just shitty. Um, but it's like, the film scores that you sent me, like, I tend to like stuff that's maybe a little bit more like brighter and optimistic, and that's just like my general taste.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean like I'm going to force the movie to not be that. I'm just going to give you the best version of what you want that I can provide. And I think that's what you should aim to do when you're collaborating with someone. Is like, understand, my job is to make Joe's vision come out to the best of my ability. Like, that was my goal. Is like, how do I make this the best movie I can for Joe, so that what he wants comes out in the finished product. And that was like my entire goal with the score.
Yeah, I think the score is one of the best things about the movie now, looking at it back on it from after 2 years.
And all because I
um,
bothered you about your Final Fantasy podcast.
yeah, fair. Yeah, that's your way of networking. It's just like a supreme networker. There you go.
I've been called a
That's
networking whore by a number of people, because
yeah, including me.
including you. But like, the thing is, like, it's not just with the podcast; it's with the band stuff. Like, there was one show where like I just walked backstage after the show, introduced myself to the band, and then just became their friends. Like, it's just, I go hard with the networking, man.
See, I'm learning how to network. I went to a film festival without having a film there, just like about a month ago, and
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm going by myself. I didn't have any friends coming with me.
You
I was
bring
like,
business
okay,
cards.
I did bring
Nice.
business
Okay.
cards, and I went,
Step one.
okay, I'm just gonna go there and I'm gonna make friends, and I'm gonna, shove off. I am an extrovert, but I do have social anxiety, so I have to like push the social anxiety to the side and be like, okay, enjoy this interaction, because if you could just get past the hump of just like saying hi to someone, you'll enjoy your time. That's what I have to tell myself. And then, and yeah, I made some. Most of them were people I already met at Desertscape, but I got to like interact with them more. And then over the last few weeks, I've been reading people's screenplays and texting back and forth, and it's really like it's a whole new world for me. So I'm always jealous of good networkers. So there's you. I got my friend Timo, who just seems to be like a networking god, and he gets jobs all the time with his costume design stuff. I got a friend who basically knows everybody who's everybody in our little local film community here. So I'm always jealous of that, and I was just like, okay, I need collaborators on the next project. I need to see who's who, and I just need to make more friends in this community anyway. So I also have to put it through that kind of like lens of being like, okay, we're not there to necessarily get something out of someone, because they're gonna smell that, and
Yeah.
it's not good for either of us. It's just like, I'm there to make friends.
Yep, that's how you have to do it. And
Yeah.
it is a tricky dance, and it's basically just, it's finding a reason to just like be sociable, go up to someone, say hi, strike up a conversation, and just being sincere.
Well, I mean, you're both chasing the same or
Right.
similar things at least. So you obviously have a love. In one case, you're talking about music. I'm talking about movies. Like, and you're both at a film festival, so you must really like movies.
Well, I've
Like,
actually been doing more film networking
so,
lately than music networking. It
well,
it's
do you want me to put 13th Cross? You want me to submit it into anything down there? I can see if it'll get into a festival down there.
uh I mean, I don't know if I'm going because I'm still COVID paranoid over here. I'm
Oh, have you gotten your vaccine yet?
I have not. Uh, Look, I've read the
Are you
literature. It looks
also
safe.
vaccine paranoid?
Basically,
That's a
it's like,
bad double. That's a double whammy there. You got to pick one.
all right. So basically, what it is how do I put this politically? I am willing to get the vaccine, and I'm going to leave it at that for now. I just
Okay.
want to
I
I'm
got
j-
both. I had COVID and I had the vaccine,
yeah.
and neither were bad.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it's
But my arm was sore with the
yeah.
vaccine.
That is one area where I would like to discuss it, but I am getting notes from the producers not to. So
Oh,
uh, but I would love to have it be submitted down here and hopefully get a chance to see it. I mean, I've seen it, but like see it on the big screen because that was one thing I was looking forward to, and also I was looking forward to like hanging out with you in person and the cast, and that was one thing I was really really excited for that I'm really
well,
bummed I missed out
you
on.
spent a lot of time with Chelsea and with Melissa. Um, so
I
you
mean,
kind of got to hang out with them on here.
I spent so much time with them in the film score too, because like by the time I interviewed them for the show, I'm like, I fucking know you already. I have watched you on
Or
loop
did I
for
say Melissa? I
hours.
meant Melanie.
Yeah, I
That was
know.
dumb. Whoops. Hopefully she doesn't see this.
I mean, she probably will. She
It's
knows both
another.
of us.
It's another M name.
I
Been a
was
couple
interviewed
years.
by her a couple weeks ago. That was fun.
I saw that. I didn't watch it. I saw that that was a thing. I saw it on
It
Instagram when I was
happened.
scrolling.
There was talking. There was the gabbing of the back and forth.
Yeah, she's a nice person.
No, she is really nice, really optimistic. I like her a lot. Like we chat on a regular basis. She was on our Bad Out of Hell podcast about a month ago, so that was pretty cool. And I once a week check Ultima Final Fantasy to see if there's a new episode, and then most weeks there isn't, and then sometimes there is.
There will be in 2 days, I think.
Ooh, which might be before I upload this, depending on how frisky I'm feeling. Um, Man, we actually got through a good chunk of time without like really talking about Final Fantasy. It's like we have other interests in life.
I know. Well, I don't know. I hardly ever think about Final Fantasy now. I just play the games and whatever game we're on. Because honestly, I played them out. I played every single one of them, dude.
I mean, you
Played them all.
you did, and the thing is,
What
like,
else is there to do except for wait for a new one?
play play the almost Final Fantasies and spin-offs, and
That's right.
once you get to Chrono Trigger, being like, okay, this is why everyone was talking this up.
Or be disappointed. That's what
It,
I'm afraid of too.
all right, Chrono Trigger is like the Godfather of video games. We're like, how everyone just like talks about the Godfather, like it's so fucking great, and then you watch like, okay,
Please.
it is, and just like before you had seen it, you're like, well, everyone just shut up about this, and then you're like, okay, but no, they were right. Like it's just what it is.
Fair. So it's not the Citizen Kane where like the first time you go, I don't get it, and then you have to watch it a few times before you're like, no, I get it, I get it. But it has to grow on you. I
Uh,
wouldn't want to have to play Chrono Trigger
okay,
19 times.
okay, well, truth be told, I actually like Citizen Kane better than Godfather, including on first viewing. So like,
Really?
I
Wow. Most people don't like Citizen Kane. Like most people that I have shown Citizen Kane to,
oh, I was
or
hella into it, but also
they
like,
go like, I don't get it. Why is this the greatest film of all time?
it's, because basically what I think is here's what I think with Citizen Kane is
By the
that
way, I think it's one of the greatest films of all
I
time.
think
But
it's no Paddington 2, but it's pretty good. But what I think about Citizen Kane is that if you like are a rabid consumer of history, you will love Citizen Kane much more than if you're just like your average bro who doesn't know like shit about the past.
Yeah, Citizen Kane is great on many levels. Many levels.
Yeah. But like
And
if
it's
you if
not
if
super clear. I think it's a good story and you're
I think
going
it's a
along
great
for the
story.
ride
But like
regardless.
if you're
It's not
into
super
like
clear what those are if you don't know what they are, I guess.
but like Gilded Age politics, like if you have an understanding of Gilded Age politics, that movie becomes 10 times better
Just
immediately.
William Randolph Hearst,
Yeah, like if you just like
Hollywood itself, Orson Welles, and then like the filming techniques, the writing,
right.
which is super ahead of its time.
But it's a
Everything.
good story like in isolation. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason why people still
It's
watch The
also
Wizard of
really good.
Oz. Like it just holds up really well. Like the fact that The Wizard of Oz still holds up like across generations, like that is another like massively impressive film.
Wizard of Oz is a tough one for me. I watch it. I'm like, I don't get why anybody likes this movie.
Oh,
I've seen
well,
it many times, and I've never gotten it. When I was a kid, I hated it too.
well, but also I
I
mean
don't hate it now, but it's just like I don't get it. But you're right. It does work for most people, and
and
it
I have
has
a
worked for a
softer
very
spot for
long time.
children's entertainment than you do. I think we can both concede that. I am more into the
I
kid stuff.
I don't seek out children's entertainment. That's the thing. So usually if like I'm gonna watch a cartoon or something, if I'm gonna watch an animated film that's made for kids, like I will have heard about it for a while and then I finally decide to watch it. I like to seek out movies that aren't going to be in the movie theater for very long.
I mean that's
So
fair. Like the
I'll
edgy
hear
indie
about the
flick.
cool new I'll hear about the cool new indie flick, whether or not it doesn't have to be edgy. A lot of times it
Right.
is, but a lot of times it's like a really good drama or a interesting comedy or slice of life film, and I'd rather go give my money to that than the movie that's going to make $900 million. Like because everybody and their kids went and saw the movie, and I also don't have to watch that movie with a bunch of kids. So
That's fair.
that's
That's very
really
fair.
I love I love all kinds of movies. I think we had this debate on Twitter.
I think we
There's
did.
not
But now we can do it
there
in person or
yeah,
in
now we
Skype,
can do it
bro.
in person. I love all kinds of movies. In fact, I think the reason why I'm pursuing movies and not music is because I was a genre I was like really specific in like what I liked about music, but with movies I'm like I like all kinds. There's no like type of movie I don't like. There's usually like a one or two great films from every subgenre that's ever been made because there wouldn't be a subgenre without those movies. And I'd want to watch them. They're just great stories, and it doesn't really matter, style or whatever. As far as what I make, might be a certain type of style, but as far as what I watch, it's all sorts of stuff. I don't love all movies. I do try to not be as much of a film snob as I was when I was a teenager. Uh, but I usually watch movies in terms of like, okay, this worked, this didn't work, and I try to just focus on what worked now. Um, uh, but like I could enjoy the last Mortal Kombat movie. Like
Well, I haven't seen
I
it, so I
enjoyed
can't
it.
judge. But
It's a junk film, but I enjoyed it. I had a good time, and I'm able to do that with movies in a way I'm not able to do that with music. Most people aren't that way. There's just something about movies that affects me differently, I guess.
you're
Um,
just in love
but
with the
yeah,
art form itself.
I am in love with the art form. There's so many different ways that it's been approached and still being approached today, and it's not dead. I really think it's kind of sad that the Marvel movies are the things that kind of everybody watches, and then everybody goes, "Oh, movies aren't as good as they used to be." And it's like you're watching one series of movies, and there's more movies than
There's so many movies out
there
there,
ever was.
and I'll say this. Look, I actually don't think the Marvel movies are that bad. I think
No,
they
I like them. It's just like a common sentiment of people that like middle-aged people that go to see like the big movie out right
All
now,
right.
and then they come back and
Hey,
like,
middle-aged people. Did you know that streaming is a thing, and there's like infinite options. And so
that's
if you
true.
don't want to see the new Marvel movie, I don't know, go find the 1939 Wuthering Heights. It's out there. There's so much shit out there you
Love
can
that
watch.
so much. That's a
Oh,
beautiful movie.
that is like that is a top two romance film, probably number one. But like it's neck and neck with Your Name, which really surprised me because I was not expecting to like that movie, and
I
I ended up
haven't
loving
seen
it.
Your Name. I
It
haven't seen Your Name.
I the like first
I've heard
like
great.
The first 2 minutes, you're gonna think this is anime weeb trash, and you're gonna be like, I was lied to. This is bullshit.
I've only heard good things about it,
The first 2 minutes,
so
you're
I'm
gonna
ready
think
for
it's
it.
anime weeb trash, and then the rest of it is a masterpiece and quite possibly the greatest romance film ever made.
I saw. I think it's the same filmmaker, but I could be totally wrong. Is it Weathering with You? Is that the same guy?
Yes, I don't think I've
Okay,
seen that one. Actually, I don't
that
know.
one.
I don't know if that's the. Yeah, I think that's the same guy, but I'm not 100%. Jamie,
Yeah,
look
we
that
might
shit up.
just. It might just be like two anime films that came out within like 2 years of each other, and I'm just screwing it up.
No, but I do
But
remember some talk about it being like someone involved creatively who is the same, and I
it's
think it might be the same
really.
guy.
It's a. I don't love it mostly because the pop soundtrack that just like shoves itself in through the second half of the film like really took me out of the movie. But it was super creative, and I was like, okay, I'm interested in seeing what this person does. um I can't remember the name of the filmmaker, and I thought it was the same person who did Your Name. It might have been Your Name or Wolf Children, one of those big anime movies I haven't seen yet that's come out in recent years. But that's another one that I thought was, yeah, I'm interested in seeing Your Name.
I would say
But
that's
yeah,
probably the single best anime movie I've seen. So it might not be like if I'm taking the totality of the entire
is it
work.
gonna beat out Akira or
I didn't really
Princess
like Akira.
Mononoke?
Princess Mononoke was. I wasn't that into the story with Princess
Really?
Mononoke. It just
uh I gotta stop saying dark movies. Spirited Away.
I didn't like Spirited Away. I actually
Wow.
I did not
Is
like
there a
Spirited Away.
Miyazaki movie you like? Don't tell
Uh,
me it's Howl's Moving Castle. I'm gonna
Kiki's
slap you.
Delivery Service I thought was
Okay,
great. I love
that's
Kiki's Delivery Service.
yeah.
But yeah, Miyazaki, he just doesn't work for me. It's just to me,
Okay.
Miyazaki feels like I will get so much hate for this, but it feels like I don't like Tarantino either. And it feels like it's so much style that isn't saying anything. And
Oh,
like I ultimately like leave the experience feeling empty. Like, what was the point of that? Like, I didn't get anything out of it. I wasn't like charmed enough during the experience to feel like yeah, it didn't charm me. I didn't learn anything about myself. I didn't learn any lessons about the characters necessarily. Versus like Kiki's Delivery Service, like I was just thoroughly charmed.
oh,
Uh,
he only has, I think he's got two types of movies. He's got the dark movie, which is, I guess he's only got one of those, and then he has like the whimsical thing, which I get roped into really quite thoroughly. I think most people do. I think you're in the minority there.
yeah, but I mean,
Um,
it's not that I'm against
like My Neighbor
whimsy.
Totoro just make me feel like, I don't know, it gives me like sentimental feelings of childhood and running around in the woods or whatever. And then I feel the same way about when I watched his last movie. What the heck was it? Oh yeah, The Wind Rises. I got the movies right above my head, so look it up there.
As I'm
when I watched
trashing on them.
Yeah, when I watched The Wind Rises, it just felt like that first scene when the boy wakes up and he's pretending to fly, and then it turns into flight. I just thought it was beautiful, and I get totally totally pulled into that. I thought yeah, I think there's a lot of depth there that I don't know. I think there's a lot to explore actually.
Well, I'll say that
Um,
Princess Mononoke, I don't think it's bad. It's just like it just struck me as like okay, like good
that one's his one
animation.
cynical movie, I think.
Good, it's like good animation, average story. I give it a B.
Oh no, I think that's an excellent movie.
But it's not that
I
I'm not against dark entirely. Like Grave of the Fireflies, I would say is a masterpiece. I know that's not Miyazaki.
No, that's Isao Takahata.
But I mean that is. And I know a lot of
That's the
people
one.
think it's Miyazaki. I'm like, no, because it's way better than his movies. Like,
I actually think I kind of I think Isao Takahata has lower lows. Like I think Pom Poko is a really bad movie. A lot of people like it, but
haven't seen it, won't judge it.
I don't think it works. But Pom Poko, and then he has like My Neighbors the Yamadas and like all these like and Only Yesterday, which just did not work for me at all. I've watched it twice. I'm just trying to like it because it took so long for it to get over here. But then he has two movies that I think Grave of the Fireflies is close. I think my favorite of his is Tale of Princess Kaguya. Like I feel like his highs are higher than Miyazaki's highs. but his lows are a lot lower too. And I think Miyazaki has a better average. So if I'm going against like the two main filmmakers at Ghibli, it's a tough call for me which one I like better. They're very different.
Yeah, very. I mean, I've only seen the one of his movies, so based upon the one movie I saw versus the all of Miyazaki I've seen, he wins based upon that. But I mean, I'm maybe if I marathoned all, I'm like, no, this guy's actually trash. He just made like two movies that were kind of cool. But for me, I'm primarily a. I think story is the most important thing, story and character, and I don't know, like too often I feel like style with directors overrides story and character. I feel like Tarantino is like the most egregious example of that. We're just like,
Totally
look at
disagree. I
look
think
at
he's
all
all
my fucking
character.
style, bro. I'm gonna tell the story out of order, even though it doesn't actually benefit the narrative at all. One
Oh
movie
no,
it
totally
benefited the
disagree.
narrative. One
Totally
movie, and
disagree.
it's his best movie. But like all the other times he does, like it's you're just doing this for style. It's not adding anything. But
Have you seen
Reservoir Dogs is a damn masterpiece. A fantastic
that's the
film.
one you think is the best? Oh man, that's weird. Okay, all right.
I've got
I mean, I like that movie.
I've got weird
I just
tastes, but like I didn't like Pulp Fiction pretty much at all. Um,
wow. I love that thing. Put it on repeat, baby.
Kill Bill I think was fine when I watched it, but I never want to see it again. But it's like
Oh, you got to watch 1 and 2
I
in a
I
row.
did
You got
watch
to
one and two in a row.
marathon.
I marathoned
Oh,
it,
that's the perfect way of watching
and
it.
I was like,
Just
yeah, this is
big
fine.
story arc.
That was
Yeah.
that was that was much better than Pulp Fiction, but not as good as Reservoir Dogs. Inglorious Bastards was like the opening scene was cool, and then there was the rest of the movie.
Oh, come on now. I mean, when the guy puts up the three fingers wrong when he's ordering the drink, um, Michael Fassbender, and they're all like all the guns are under the table, and then it turns into a bloodbath. I
I
mean,
totally
that
remember
sequence
that
is
scene. I
amazing.
totally remember that. Really,
And then there's also the scene with come on with it's I forgot the actor's name. It's the German guy
Christoph
when he's
Waltz.
like yeah, when he's negotiating with them at the end scene, he's like, "That's a bingo!" Like, come on, that's perfect. It's a perfect movie. I think you're insane.
I think it had a really good opening scene, and then the rest of the movie was just kind of there.
Have you
Uh,
seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I have not. I've seen Death Proof. Um,
That one is.
that is a
That one's.
very Tarantino kind of movie.
Yeah, it's not a very good one though. I think even Tarantino says that's his worst film, and I agree.
I haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The thing is, like, there's a lot of elements to his movies that I like John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis. I like Margot Robbie.
They're
I
not
like Brad Pitt.
plot. They're not so much plot, except for Django. Django's a pretty plot heavy movie, but
I mean,
most of
they're
the
they're about conversations. They're about
they're
like
about
here's
yeah,
quippy
hanging out with
conversations.
characters.
I just don't think the characters are like interesting enough for me to care about their quippy conversations.
Wow. Oh wow. Just totally. We are not on the same page about that. Oof.
Like I think I also think in general film is a harder medium to make characters that you care about because of the limited time constraints. Like there's not as much time for character development. Not to say there aren't great film characters, but like um if I think that better quips would be, it's a different medium, but like Breaking Bad. So I like Breaking Bad a lot. It's darker, but I think it's better written. So I'm interested in the character arcs that the characters go on in that show. So I'm not like anti-darkness guy. I'm just like I don't think darkness for the sake of darkness or like style for the sake of style like it doesn't interest me. It's like what else you got? It's like it's such surface level stuff. I need like the way that a lot of people criticize Zack Snyder for that sort of thing. I'm just like he just does the cool visuals and the story doesn't have any depth. I take it a step further and go to filmmakers that are otherwise beloved.
Yeah, uh I mean I do agree with that sentiment. I disagree on the filmmakers. For sure. And like Zack Snyder, he's an amazing stylist. So what he does is really incredible.
Yeah. And the thing is, all right, so
It's just he has to be matched with a good script, and
here's
he's
my
not
hottest
always matched
take.
with a good
My
script.
hottest take, and this is rage inducing for the internet. I prefer Zack Snyder to Quentin Tarantino.
I I think you're an insane person.
In terms of
Insane.
in terms of preference, I'd rather watch BVS than Pulp Fiction.
I'm wrong. That's the wrong answer to that. Oh no.
In terms of
No.
in terms of
It's not a
preference.
slag on Zack Snyder. It's a Quentin's so much better than you think he is. It's not even funny. My favorite Zack Snyder movie is Watchmen for sure.
That is great. But also
By like a long stretch.
that's by far his best movie. But also he just copied the comic.
But a lot of people hate. A lot of comic book lovers hate that movie for some
I
reason.
don't
I do
understand it
not
because
care
I
because
read
I never watched or never read the comic.
I read the comic first. I read the entire thing, and then I watched the movie. It's like, yeah, that was pretty much as faithful as you could possibly be in the time constraints of a movie. That was really good. And then the
It was
comic
a
fans,
wonderful, clever movie that went with his style really
right?
well.
It's just the book. It is as faithful as like season 1 of Game of Thrones is to the first book. Actually, more so. Like it is so faithful. Where like the changes are so minor that like you just like, oh yeah, that's totally reasonable. Like the core of it was the same, the dialogue was the same, like the framing of the shots was the same as the comic. Like it was just the book in movie form, which is probably
Mhm.
why it worked so well because he's good at translating those kind of things, and it was just a well written book. Like I think it was like Time Magazine listed as like one of the greatest novels of all time. Like it was the only comic that was listed as a novel. But I would agree. It's just a great story.
I gotta get to it someday. I've never read a comic all the way through.
Honestly, you don't need to. You saw the movie.
That's not the movie. That's good.
I'm not going to be like one of those like you need to read the comic. Like it's the same fucking thing, and I don't understand what the fans are so upset about. Like I I literally don't get it. Like that's the same thing. But like yeah, but it's not how I imagined it. It's the same fucking lines and the same angle. What do you want? The
What
score
do you
should have been
want?
different. Well, too bad. Deal with it. Watch it on mute with subs.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But there's always some sort of thing. Like I like the third X-Men movie. I've always been a defender of it.
I do.
Um,
All right, now that is something I
and I
think is
just
trash.
and it's because I've never read the comics. I do not care about the Phoenix character. Like to me,
Okay.
it's like the Phoenix that was built up in the movie worked for the movie. I don't think
That
it.
I haven't been able to view it with that context. I haven't watched it since I first saw it. Um,
Really? Wow, it's a long time ago.
but that's because I hated it. I thought it sucked. Um,
Fair enough.
I also didn't like Spider-Man 3. I thought that sucked. I thought there was
That one's a rough movie.
there's one legitimately great dramatic scene in that movie, and then there's the rest of the movie.
In Spider-Man.
In Spider-Man 3, I think the scene where he is confronting Sandman in like the subways underground, and like trying to murder him. I think the dramatic tension in there isn't necessarily earned, but I think that scene itself, if you had a better build up to it, like I think the framing of it, the score, the acting was really good. It's just the plot that led up to it was kind of like stupid and convoluted. But I think that scene in isolation, if you heard he was confronting Uncle Ben's murderer, is actually a good scene.
I think that I think we've all gone through Spider-Man 3 and gone, how can I fix this?
I mean, I'm not. I
I think
haven't
we
gone through
all.
how can I fix it. I just would say I will watch this one clip because then I
I
can pretend there
honestly
was a
think
good movie around it.
I honestly think they were pressured, and knowing this in hindsight, it makes total sense. They were pressured to put more bad guys in. That movie was set up to be Hobgoblin as the bad guy.
Yeah.
And so when you're watching the first act of that movie and you see like, okay, one giant setup with a retcon with Sandman here, and then you get Venom here, and then finally you get Hobgoblin later. It's like, well, they ended the Spider-Man 2 with a Hobgoblin tease, and then you shoved in a bunch of other plot lines that don't really line up well. You put in a dumb Sandman. I think that retcon is horrible.
Oh, it's a terrible retcon. It's
I think
really
that might be
bad.
the worst thing about that movie is that Sandman retcon. It's like if they were not in the movie and you could have just crafted, just like you had with the other two movies, one bad guy and maybe like increase the stakes or increase the scale because it's the third movie or whatever, you could have made Hobgoblin because it's him versus his best friend. Like that could have been a really, I think that would have had more potential than what they did.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
so
Sandman is just like he's also just not that cool of a villain, but Sam Raimi really wanted to do Sandman for some reason. He's like, "No, we're doing Sandman no matter what." So like
well,
the
then you got to get rid of Venom because that movie has just got too much in it. It's
right,
got too
but then
much.
the executives were insisting, "Let's do Venom because everyone likes Venom. No one likes Sandman. We'll let you do
I
Sandman if you put Venom in." It's like,
didn't like
"Okay,
that
fine."
version of Venom.
No, they did. Ah, man, that was yeah. So Spider-Man 3, bad movie. The emo scene in retrospect is actually good because like
I thought it was a comedy scene. Everybody like makes it like it's a serious scene. I laughed when I saw it the first time in the movie theater, and I think we're supposed to laugh at
well,
it.
I think it's like it's a jump in the shark moment where you lose the connection you have with any semblance of reality that that world might have set up, where it just feels like too campy and silly, even for a
Well,
Sam
he's
Raimi Spider-Man, which is impressive.
I don't think I think that everybody looks at that scene like it's the bad thing about the movie, and I think honestly that's I I think I take away that might be one of my favorite parts about
Oh no,
that Spider-Man.
now it's like my second favorite scene from the movie. Like in retrospect, that is amazing. But in the same way
For
that
me, it
like
wasn't even in retrospect. I liked it the first time I watched it. It's like all this like afterwards, people think it wasn't supposed to be funny, and it's unintentionally. It is intentionally funny.
oh
There are
yeah,
people when Peter Parker's like pointing at people, there are people looking at him like, "What are you doing?" Like the extras in the scene are doing that, and so it's supposed to be funny. I don't
I
know,
think I was
and it
too close
was
to emo
funny.
kids at
We're
the
all
time.
laughing at it.
I think it was too much. Like that was when I was a genre snob and I just hated emo. Now I think emo is great, but like completely ironically. Like I listen to My Chemical Romance all the time and laugh my ass off. I'm like, this is fantastic.
I had to come back to My Chemical Romance after like 10 years to be like, "Oh, this guy's voice is really
Oh,
strong."
it is really like the thing is emo bands are very good, and I feel bad for writing them off musically because they're
Well,
fantastic. They're fan
shouldn't have,
freaking tastic.
shouldn't have also been a fashion statement.
Well,
It's just
they were
like,
the hair metal of the day, where
yeah, and
people
we all making fun of hair metal. Maybe you weren't, but I was.
I was the lone person defending hair metal in my high
Yeah,
school, sir. I
like
was the
the hair.
one.
I mean, I love Bon Jovi, but it's not the hair part.
Well, I think that they had a better fashion sense than the bands of the '90s, which was just show up in your street clothes. Like I do think that a rock star should look different than like the dude you see at the post office. You know,
I
there's
think it was. I think clearly it was a reaction. It was a
oh
hard. So
yeah, it was
you were going too hard to the right, and you got to over correct to the left. So it's like,
right, but it's like how people were just like, oh man, I don't really like Obama. Let's go with Trump. Like it's or or the other way around. I don't like Bush. Let's go with Obama. Like you're going way too hard in these directions. You gotta like settle down on something a little bit more reasonable. Whichever way you lean. And with like the hair metal to grunge thing, I think with grunge like because I did a thing with my wife like a few months back where we were like just browsing on YouTube together, and there was the can you name this '90s song quiz, and they like play like 30 seconds from the song, and then you'd have to guess it. Not 30 seconds, like 5 seconds or whatever. Like we did like '80s and '70s, and then we did '90s, and she's like. And my wife is older than me, so it's not like she has the same '90s hatred I do. Like she was a teenager in the '90s, and she was listening to this like, oh my god, you're right. '90s music is terrible in comparison. Like this is really bad. This is a sudden sharp decline. Like I know, I've been telling you this for years. And then she's like, "Oh, I finally get it." I think there's the desire for sincerity and authenticity uh overrode the sense of like what if we're good at the same time though? Like what if what
I have
like
to defend Nirvana all the
well,
time from Twice.
I need to mumble and be so sincere, but you don't know what I'm sincere about because you can't understand a goddamn word I'm saying. But I'm gonna be
Fair
so
enough.
sincere about my mumbling, and like I don't think that technical ability is the be all end all of musicians. I think that songcraft is more important than how well you play your instrument. As long as you play the song you wrote well and all the pieces come together. So like nothing's clashing. You don't have a guitar player soloing over your vocals and like it needs to gel. The group needs to gel as a whole. To Nirvana's credit, they probably gel better than I give them credit for. I just don't like what they do.
I love that album Bleach so much. Ah,
Just
I don't know.
it doesn't do it for me.
I'm
As a
definitely
songwriter, it doesn't do it for me.
I definitely prefer like the down to earth style of grunge over most hair metal stuff. That was the big stuff before. Of course, my favorite is the briefly famous thrash metal that popped up right in the middle of the grunge era. But um,
I like one of the big four a lot.
I know you do. I
The one
like
that's
three
most
of
like
them.
a glam band.
I like two of them a lot. One of them pretty well, and then one of them I like four songs. Um,
I think I like those same four songs from Anthrax, and I like a whole one
that's
song from
very.
Slayer.
Um, I think I could do like an album's worth, or maybe an album and a half's worth of songs from Slayer. I'm really into.
Oh, I
I
like
had
their
a.
punk covers album that Twice hates. I like that one.
I've never listened to that one. I'm afraid to.
Well, here's what I'll say. I like it. I don't like any other Slayer stuff other than Die by the Sword. What does that say? I don't know. Probably you'll hate it.
Probably. Probably. Um, yeah, I don't. I prefer that to the like the Poison or the Rat or stuff like that. I listen to those songs on the radio and they're just kind of cheesy to me. Doesn't mean I don't like some of them, because I mean you can kind of get over it and have fun with it. It's definitely it's more about the fun than it is about like the emotional core
I
or emotional
I
truths.
disagree because like as someone who listens to like full albums by those bands,
Fair.
there's more
I'm
depth.
only listening to singles, so
There's
I don't
more
know.
depth than they're given credit for. And so like if the grunge bands their singles are like, oh, I'm so angry songs and like there's a lot more depth than those bands are given credit for. Like, one of Poison's biggest hits is this emotional ballad about his friend that uh died and just like him mourning with the grief of that. And that's like one of their Poison's biggest hits. It's a power ballad.
What's the name of the song? I
Something to
might know
believe
it.
in.
Uh, maybe I know it. I don't know.
But the thing is like those bands that were like I feel like the criticism against them is too harsh in that the story is largely the same. They're a bunch of kids who are on the strip playing together, got discovered, got a record deal, wrote their own songs, played their own instruments, wrote their own hits and were successful for a period of time. And everyone says, oh, they're like these corporate manufactured garbage acts. When they're writing their own material, they're playing their own material, they're having fun. And like musically, it's easy to trace the lineage from like the Beatles and 60s bubblegum to where they ended up with like their hooks and their song structures. And so
Yeah,
as a
like
guy who
early
loves
Beatles. Is that what
60s
you're talking
pop,
about?
what?
Like early Beatles?
Yeah, like early Beatles. Well, like even latter
Okay.
day Beatles, they still kept the pop structure. They just like made the lyrics more edgy and added in some weird instruments. But like the pop
Yeah,
structures,
definitely. I think that. I mean, I like the early Beatles as like every once in a while pop that on, but I'm definitely like more in the second half. I think most people are in the second half of
oh,
the Beatles.
I'm vastly early half. I like
Oh
latter
wow.
half, and the Beatles are my favorite band. But early half, it's just like the thing is, there's one bad song in the catalog, and that song is an absolute dumpster fire, like piece of trash, and like the worst thing you ever hear. But just like everything else is just like fire, fire, fire all in a row. And I love Popcraft, and I think
Sure.
that grunge and like the metal of the '90s, they didn't understand or appreciate Popcraft and actively turned against it. And I think that's fine to a degree, but I think the best rock bands understood Popcraft and had that in the material. Like Black Sabbath having sing along choruses, that's Popcraft. Like Enter Sandman is Popcraft. Like that's just what it is.
I agree with you, somewhat. I do. I do think so. Like as a writer, bringing it back to writing for a second, um, that structure is a wonderful tool, but I don't think it's the be all end all. And if it is the be all end all, you can see right through it. And I think a lot of those, I'm not gonna say any like specific things. I think more in like when those early hair metal bands have albums out now, you can kind of feel it where it doesn't feel like it's coming from the heart. It feels like they just are structuring a song because they know how to structure a song.
I agree. Structure is not the be all end all.
I think it can
But
kill creativity. I think it
but
kills the artistry
but I
and the
think
emotion in it. And I can see through it a lot of the times.
but the thing is, like,
I can see through it in movies
as
too
someone
with
who
the
was like,
3 act structure.
as someone who has met like a lot of those hair metal guys, like they were just sincere. They were kids having fun. So like I don't think they were insincere at all, and I think that it's just like a history written by the winners kind of thing,
They were
where
sincerely horny
yeah they were since,
all the time.
but like not even just that. Like they wrote about other subject matter, like Warrant had songs about like child abuse and stuff, but like
Girls, girls, girls.
well that's Motley Crue.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Motley Crue.
But there's lots of good bands. I think were just
Oh, Cherry Pie is what I'm thinking of.
yes, which admittedly Janie wrote that song in 45 minutes because the label asked for a single. Because the title track, so the track 2 on the album, which was going to be the title track and the lead off single, which the label wasn't happy with, is a song about a police murder and the police hiding the bodies, and that's what they wanted the lead single to be. So like I think the bands don't get nearly enough credit, and I know that like no one cares and it's a losing battle, but I appreciate the art that they made, and there's like a treasure trove of good stuff for those willing to dig, just who are willing to listen to track 2 on Cherry Pie. If you can get to track 2, there's a treasure trove. Just digging slightly beneath the surface of leaving the CD on.
Fair enough.
But once again, minority on this. It's like I've gone back to the grunge bands, and like some I've been wrong about. Like Smashing Pumpkins is freaking great. So
Smashing Pumpkins is post grunge.
Are they post grunge if they were like debuting in '89?
There's only 4 grunge bands. Everything else is post grunge.
But they like debuted before grunge got big.
In '89, did they have a hit in '89, or when did they start?
I think their first hit was like '91 or '92. So like
yeah,
the same,
they might be included in that, but they're not part of the big 4 of grunge.
no, they're not. They're not the big 4 of grunge. They're better than the big 4 of grunge, in my opinion.
I don't know. I'm back. I like Smashing Pumpkins' heavier stuff, which is kind of few and far between. And then like their ballads, I'm get sick of. Like I find like I try to listen to Melancholy whatever that thing is.
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Yeah, it's too long of a title to remember. And
yeah, I like the ballads.
I listened to that thing and I was just like, I was bored a lot of the time. I was just bored, and it just killed me that I was like, well, I love Zero, and I love their really famous one,
Bullet with Butterfly Wings.
Bullet with the Butterfly Wings. But
I hate
their
that
ballads,
song.
I can't stand. Like his voice on a ballad is like, it's very similar to Dave Mustaine's voice on a ballad. It's like, you're not meant for this. Get out of here.
Yeah,
I don't know. This is why I can't be a musician. I'm too picky with the music.
I mean,
people
tend to be, I think people are genre snobs with music a lot more. I think it's more commonplace than you think. Amongst professional musicians, I found like there's much more eclecticism of taste, and then but then you have to act like you hate most stuff to the general public to sell your stuff. Like, oh yeah, man, anything that's like, when talking with Ellefson, who is no longer in good standing with the metal community currently.
Just with Dave Mustaine.
Just with
Dave
Mustaine.
The metal community is fine with him.
It's a very fascinating thing to witness, the Dave Ellefson thing, where like the fact that
by the way, we're recording this on May 29th in case anything else comes out after
May 29th. But like the fact that like a rock star engaged in infidelity is news.
Well, look, this is
like
what bugs
not
me
that I encourage that, because I think it is morally wrong and I wouldn't do that to my wife. But it's like,
I agree. It's not something you should be fired over.
But it's like I was in one of the biggest bands of the 80s and I got laid. Breaking news. Like,
Yeah. I mean, considering Dave Mustaine's drug abuse and all of his infidelity and all that, what the heck? And it's all in his book, by the way. He
right.
wrote about it. He called Salt Lake City, which I thought was nasty. Um, and considering all that, I thought it was really, really hypocritical. If that is the specific reason that
No, it's probably
Ellison
just
was fired.
he just didn't like him, wanted an excuse, found an excuse.
Who couldn't like Ellison? I can't.
Well,
Dave.
I'll tell you this. I do feel weird, like, because I remember, like, when I shook his hand, and now just, like, my hand feels weird now.
Oh, jeez, come on.
Like,
Come on.
I did have that moment just, like, gross. But then again, everyone you shake hands with, you're gonna be like, gross. Every guy, at least.
I guess we can talk about Megadeth.
I mean, I guess we are talking about Megadeth.
We both love Megadeth.
We do. I like Risk. You don't like Risk.
Yeah, I think Risk is awful, but
I think it's it's fine for what it is. I think it's. I think if you just look at it, just like here's just a good collection of songs, and not just I need this to be metal, but like I like when bands mix it up and try something different. Like Kiss did a ill-fated progressive rock concept album that everyone hated, and I thought it was awesome. But also, I was probably one of the like 10 people who was willing to like see Kiss do a progressive rock concept album. Like, guys, look, we can actually play our instruments. Yeah, but sing about getting laid. You know, like go back to your party songs. Stop trying to be deep.
I think the sad thing with Megadeth right now is that, like, okay, now the second oldest member in that group is Kiko. Like, that's sad. Like, because the drummer's brand new. They're gonna bring in a new bassist. Yeah, it's just the Dave Mustaine solo show at that point. Ellefson has co-wrote like a couple of the classic Megadeth songs.
Yeah, but it's
Ellefson's like bass tone is part of the Megadeth sound, and it just feels so wrong. Like he's missing off of the one album that he's not on. The System Has Failed. He's definitely missing off there. Like, you're missing that Ellefson sound.
yeah, but they brought back what's his name, bassist from the first two albums on that album. Why am I blanking on his name?
I don't know his name. There's too many guitarists to remember.
But no, like it was like the original guy. Why can't I remember his name? It's driving me nuts.
They brought on Chris Poland as the lead guitarist.
Oh yeah, that's who I was thinking of on guitar.
Yeah.
But that I don't know. I like that.
He was an
album.
amazing guitarist. So I think Kiko's better than all the guitarists they've ever had. So I'm glad Kiko's still in. However long that'll last.
Well, it's like there are a number of people who say that like there's a similar thing with Smashing Pumpkins where Jimmy Chamberlain, the drummer, is considered a core part of the Smashing Pumpkins sound, but one of their biggest albums he wasn't even on.
Right.
And so, you know, there are certain bands where like you know who the guy is. For me, Megadeth, like Dave Mustaine is the guy. Like you can find another really good bassist, but you can't replace Dave's vocals and songwriting. And I know Elvis co-wrote a couple of the biggest songs, and like obviously like his bass tone, like Peace Sells, is just like ingrained in your brain forever.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think he is necessarily as irreplaceable. Like when there's like one principal creative guy, like it doesn't make sense for him to call it anything other than Megadeth. Like when Billy Corgan writes a song, it's Smashing Pumpkins. Like whether he says it's Billy Corgan solo or not, it's Smashing Pumpkins.
You're right, but as a fan of like those musicians specifically, I mean, there's never been a drummer that's really stuck through except for Menza. And I wish the Lamb of God guy would be able to come back, but he's obviously too busy, which is really the problem there. Because he did amazing work on the last thing. But yeah, I never felt like Chris Broderick, the last guitar player before Kiko, was really like, because I listened to the guitar tone and everything like that. Like I do listen to those guitarists, and I think that Kiko's probably, I think he's the best guitarist they've ever had. But
Really?
so yeah, I do.
Better than Marty?
Um,
Really?
but they all each have a voice. Kiko can do everything Marty and Poland can do, and he does them perfectly on stage too. But then his own stuff is also, I think it's just incredible. That stuff that his solos on Dystopia were just amazing. So he has the technical skill of any of the guitarists before him, and on top of that, his artistry is amazing. And I would love to see what he does in the future. But I'm afraid Dave's going to find a reason to fire him.
You know, he's Dave. He does that.
So yeah, gosh, that hurts. I mean, I hope what I've heard from Dave Ellefson is the truth. About the incident, and if it is, then I don't think he deserves to be fired. Not
I
at
don't
this
know.
point on May 29th, 2021.
Not on this not at this point. The thing is, like, I have a bunch of friends who are friends with him, so I have like 1 degree of separation from him. Met him the one time, but like never hit add on Facebook. But he does every now and then show up in like people you may know.
Okay.
And they're like, "Do you want to add him as a friend?" And then I just never did. And I'm especially not going to do it right now, as I'm sure he wants his privacy.
Probably isn't getting on the computer at all.
Probably isn't getting on the computer at all. But it's I have
his
a lot.
Wife probably burned his phone.
Oh yeah. But I have a lot of sympathy for like the hired gun musicians and like the members of the band who maybe don't get as much spotlight. So including. So like, I'm lumping him in with that, like anyone who's like secondary to like the boss of a band.
Sure.
So it's not when I say that like he's replaceable, that doesn't mean that like I don't have sympathy for that, because so many of my friends are the replacement hired guns who like are replaced at the drop of a hat and also replacing at the drop of a hat. So like I have sympathy for that position. So I just want to make sure it's clear that like it's not like I don't care about the guy. But it's just in terms of like the creative vision for the band, I don't find it to be ultimately too much affected.
Yeah, the songs won't be affected, I guess, not too much.
And you know,
But
as a nerd who cares more about the
bass tone
writing. But you know, I'm one of those weirdos who likes Jim Steinman better than Meatloaf, which is like the emphasis and focus on the writing rather than the performer. You know, that is a niche I acknowledge is a bit odd.
Yeah.
And maybe it explains why I like hair metal more than grunge, where I'm just like, you know, maybe these performers are more authentic. I'll give grunge performers more authenticity, but I don't think the writing itself is as strong.
I think it does explain like why you're more into rock than pop. You know.
There's a lot of great pop craft though, and I think that gets overlooked by rock snobs who just like don't understand how great a finely crafted pop tune is. Like you listen to Levitating by Dua Lipa, and if you don't understand how perfectly crafted of a pop song that is, like I don't understand your way of listening to music.
I don't think I've actually heard that song, so I can't comment on that. But I remember like there was a point, I don't know, I must have been a teenager because I just didn't realize this stuff. Where like, and I don't even remember what set it off, but the realization that most of the music you hear on the radio isn't written by the person who's singing it, like that disturbed me.
Oh, and that didn't bother me at all, because I like was like, hell yeah, Desmond Child, Diane Warren, you got another hit on the charts. You go, girl boss, kill it.
Like I was just like, I couldn't believe it. Like all my, because you know, pretty much only obsessed with Metallica, and they all write their own stuff. So, and they're able to have these huge hits and these huge careers anyway, and he has a good enough voice that he's able to do that. But you know, it's funny to me. It's just like there's the songwriter and there's the singer in most popular music.
You know, it's nice when it's the same person, but like I feel like those like mega songwriters are just like gifts to humanity. Like if you ever just go on Desmond Child's Wikipedia page and you're just like, thank you, sir, for both living on a prayer and living La Vida Loca. You have made my life so much better.
It's all about living for him.
It's all about living, and isn't that what life is about? Living? Hell yeah.
I wonder, see now with rock acts, it's always like, okay, which of the songs do I love? I guess I could look this up, but I don't care to. It's like, I know there's some songs by Aerosmith that aren't written by Aerosmith.
Desmond Child, probably.
Yeah, I assume it's the same with Bon Jovi. Now I'm
Desmond
afraid to
Child.
like
You
all of them.
just go on Desmond Child's Wikipedia page. You're like, oh, all those songs I like are just that guy.
Oh, that's
You know,
just
I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss. Desmond Child.
yeah. Oh, that's my favorite Kiss song. That's disappointing.
I mean, he co-writes. Like, it's not that like he just writes them by himself. Like Desmond Child's superpower is that he like gets in a room with the artist and brings out the best in the artist. So like they
Mhm.
like bounce things back and forth. So he doesn't really write alone. He always gets with the artist and then they come up with just like the catchiest chorus of all time. And then he does it again like a week later.
I mean, you just listed a whole bunch of great songs. So, all
I mean,
right, fair enough.
dude's a monster, you know, an
Eh,
absolute genius.
So we're pushing 2 hours here. There's one more thing I want to ask you.
All right, go for it.
It just popped up in my head. Your 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 hot take on Billie Eilish.
Uh, she seems fine.
Okay.
My hot take is largely neutrality. Think I heard some of her stuff. It was okay. Didn't necessarily wow me. Didn't hate it either. You know,
Hmm.
she didn't know who Van Halen was apparently, and that upset a bunch of boomers. I mean,
Like 17 years old.
yeah,
How's he
like,
gonna
oh,
know
a
that?
17-year-old didn't know Van Halen. I am so shocked.
Yeah. 17-year-old pop artist didn't
Yeah,
know Van
17.
Halen.
Yeah, I
Her
mean,
brother probably knew who Van Halen
yeah, and
was.
look, that doesn't
He's the
make
one
Van
playing the
Halen.
bass on that thing.
The thing is, and I think you and I both know this as like fans of like going through art history, most people don't bother consuming art history. They just like whatever is available present day, and they don't bother looking back, which is a shame because there's so many great things. Like people won't
Yeah.
play the original FF7 because it's an old game, and then they're just missing out on a masterpiece. I don't watch old movies. I don't know, bro. You should watch the 1939 Wuthering Heights because Merle Oberon and Laurence goddamn Olivier missing out, son. Shit.
Incredible on that thing. And you know what? You know who I when I watched that movie, I was like, oh man, him and Timothy Dalton are like dead ringers for
Oh
one
my god,
another.
you're right.
It's like when I watched Wuthering Heights, I had just got through all the Bond movies, and I was like, what the heck?
Yeah,
What?
I went through
Because
finally
Laurence
watching one of
Olivier
each of
is
those.
usually pretty makeup up, and
Yeah,
in most of the major movies that I've on all the movies I've seen him in, except for Wuthering Heights. But in Wuthering
really
Heights,
made
he's
up in
just
Othello.
himself. Yeah, I've never watched that. I've seen some footage. And I'm like, oh, oh, okay.
Oh.
Uh, but yeah, amazing actor. But usually you don't see him in that way. It's kind of the similar with Daniel Day-Lewis in Phantom Thread. It was like, oh, he's just himself in this movie. He just looks like himself. Weird. He's a very handsome man too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think
Uh,
just like that,
she,
the Heathcliff, Kathy imagery from that film is like so
God, there
just permeates my soul. Actually, Merle, from the first album was written about Merle Oberon after seeing Wuthering Heights,
you
so
go.
inspired by
It's a
the classic
great
film.
movie.
Oh,
Great movie. I've never read the book, but the movie I just love,
the
adore. The movie.
the book is great. The book is better than the movie. The movie tells the first half of the book because the second half is really like awkward. Because like part two is just like all of their
Like their children, right?
yeah, it's like it's all their descendants, and Heathcliff is just like being a dick to a bunch of teenagers, and
A
just like
weird thing that books do sometimes.
yeah,
That's
just
not the only book I've heard where it's like, and then it cuts forward to the next generation. It's
right.
like, what? Why?
But the thing is, like, it's
But
kind of awesome because like his entire life is just like being just a petty asshole, and it's so great. I love it.
Kathy. Every time I hear the word cat, the name Kathy, I think of him saying Kathy. That's what I think of.
Oh,
Kathy.
another great song inspired by Wuthering Heights. It's all coming back to me now. Performed by Celine Dion, written by Jim Steinman.
It's all yeah. Okay. Uh, I'm actually a big fan of Billie Eilish. I think her first album is great.
Like I said, I listened to a couple tracks out of curiosity. It didn't grab me, but I would hesitate to say they was bad. Just I might just not have been in the mood for it.
I think
So
the best. I think one of the things you can at least appreciate as a musician is the technical like production of it. Like put those things on with a good pair of headphones, like good mixing headphones, and it's just like it's so pristine. Like her brother is so good at that stuff.
actually
He's
care about
such
that stuff a
such a
lot
good
less than
producer.
most musicians. Like Steve is obsessed with that stuff. I listen to like shitty songwriting demos recorded on cassette by like dead musicians that I love. And I'm like, I wish this was higher sound quality, but the song is so good I don't care. So like you would be horrified by the quality of some of the stuff I listen to, but I just love the song so much. I'm like, I don't care how shitty this sounds. So like
Fair
the
enough.
technical production stuff, I appreciate it, but it's it's like with the Tarantino thing. I don't care how good your style is. Like, what else you got?
I wanted to just be clear that I disagree strongly with
Most
that
people
last
do.
part.
Most people do. And look. I acknowledge the dialogue is good, but just like I just can't be bothered to care about the stories. And
Oh, I care about the stories too. That's what like surprises me. Like I'm in the whole movie. I'm in.
like I don't know, like Inglorious Bastards, like I'm not really spending enough time with any of these individual characters to like have any kind of established connection with them. And it's just more just like how can we make this net scene be offbeat? It's just like it's just a bunch of offbeat scenes connected, and then at the end, like, oh, we shot up Hitler, and now we're gonna scalp the Nazi who thought he was so clever.
Disagree. Okay.
All right, you
Hey,
want you want to?
next time we do this,
Yeah.
we should talk about the making of the 13th Cross, because that next time we hop on here, we should do it like right before that movie comes out,
All right, so
when I finally get a date on it.
I'll see you in 2025 then.
Yeah, 22, somewhere around there,
All right. Well, hey,
probably.
if it's not within the next 6 months, we'll bring you on again to talk about why it's still not out. And I don't know. I'll play one of those like random spin-off Final Fantasy games you're playing and agree with you or disagree with you. I don't know what's after the what series are you even on right now? Is it the Mana series? What's after that?
We're still in Mana. I have to try to beat Dawn of Mana in the next 2 days. Then we have Heroes of Mana after that, and then we're returning to Final Fantasy 14 to
Oh, I
finish
need to.
up the patches on the last expansion,
Nice.
and then we're going into some crazy territory. Let me pull up the list that's on Discord here. Okay. Then we have Final Fantasy cameos, which are video games in
Oh,
which Final Fantasy
like
characters
Chocobo
show up.
Racing, Air Guys. Oh, is Smash Bros on
Airgaze,
that list now?
Airgaze, Secret of Evermore, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and then there's like a Mario soccer game that hasn't been added.
Oh,
That we just found out
I think that was like a basketball game, if I remember correctly, where like there's
something
yeah, I think I
on
actually played a little
DS.
bit of that. It was a Mario basketball game.
Yeah.
It
So we're
was
playing
that.
like 5 games that have almost nothing to do with Final Fantasy. Then we're playing some Chocobo games after that. And then it's finally to Kingdom Hearts, which I have just been like itching for years. For years. I've been wanting to play Kingdom Hearts. I'm like, I can't play in all these other games, but someday we'll get to them on Final Fantasy. I want to play Kingdom Hearts 3. I know people are mixed on it, but
And I actually
as a Kingdom Hearts fan, I want to play it.
so I
So
actually want to ask you. I know we're supposed to be doing sign-offs, but that just led me to a curiosity.
I don't care. We can go for 5 more hours if you want.
I mean, whatever. Uh, because me, how do I put this? Kingdom Hearts feels like the kind of thing that you shouldn't like based upon what I know about your tastes. In that it just seems like a
Taste
little
in the
bit
video games.
and also I'm maybe I put too much emphasis on storytelling in the sense that like the only video games I really play are JRPGs because I'm like, well, I want to experience the story and it's not a book or a movie, so fuck it, I'm playing the game.
Sure.
Um and so I tie story and gameplay much closer together. So like as a video game, Kingdom Hearts are hella fun. Like the button mashing, like all that stuff is super fun, but I find it interesting that like I haven't really heard you trash on the story of those games, and I find that fascinating because given your taste in storytelling, which I know I'm painting with a
Look,
broad brush, but it feels like maybe it's like the FF8 thing where there's a
I
certain
like
charm to
emotional
it where
clarity.
what?
I like emotional clarity in my stories. And they don't necessarily have to be logical clarity.
Got it. So emotional clarity over logical clarity.
Yeah. I think that's kind of, I don't know, if I'm gonna just like pull out of my butt a thing that I like in stories, or that, let's say, so me and my friends have arguments over Ad Astra or some other movie that I really enjoy that they really hated. It's usually an argument about like they're arguing
Oh,
like
the end of Game of
chess.
Thrones. I think
They're
that'd be perfect.
arguing chess pieces and logic when I'm arguing like emotions and how it feels and like all these other things. I recognize they're both important, but I will choose one over the other. And so with Kingdom Hearts, I'll be honest, I don't know if I totally understood the story of Kingdom Hearts 2. Like, I don't know. I don't think I got it all, but it didn't really matter because the emotional core of the story was strong enough that I was still being pulled along. And other people, I'd say like more left brainy, more insular type of people who kind of get into those details might find sort of issues with it. I don't know if that's what you're saying about Kingdom Hearts specifically, but that is something that I've noticed with the Final Fantasy stuff, like the stuff I've liked. They're like, well, this detail, this detail,
No,
this detail
I just
doesn't
thought it
line
was
up.
really
Like, I don't
anime.
care.
I just thought it was really anime and more weebish than you normally like, and we're just wanted to, because that does seem to be a thing. I've noticed there's a certain section of the Final Fantasy fan base where they pretend that they don't like anime and trash anime all the time. I'm like, you're playing fucking Final Fantasy. Why are you trashing anime all the
Yeah.
time? And I'm not saying that you do that as much. Oh yeah, freaking the Final Fantasy V movie. I don't understand how you guys thought that was like good in the slightest. That thing is fucking terrible. Um,
It's I think it's better than Average Children. Um,
uh,
but
I mean, it's a
it just felt
it's a
like a
low bar,
cohesive
but I think it
movie.
somehow limbo's under the bar that Advent Children set because Advent Children, you know, like Kingdom Hearts, emotionally honest, despite logically being really stupid.
Yeah, I think there's other things that don't work about the like, especially in the complete version where it's like, oh, why are you bogging us down with this? That piece of dialogue was dumb.
Right.
Like that part's laughable.
Oh, I mean,
Uh,
it's basically just
there's
it's
things like
kind of
that.
it's some cool fight scenes and the characters acting out of character and being like, "Look at
The
me
fight scenes are
regressing,"
great.
and what? Oh yeah, the fight scenes are great, but like, "Oh, look at me, I've regressed as a character, and this doesn't make sense as a response to what happened at the end of the game." Doo doo.
Yeah, that's also another thing. It's like I specifically with movies, I try to view them just by themselves a little bit more. Especially when it's talking about the Final Fantasy movies, as like a person who likes movies a lot, um, what I'm coming at, like, what's that be before Crisis or whatever that short film that was made, which
That
I
short
think is
anime.
probably
That was
that's
pretty good.
probably the best. That's probably
Yeah.
the best one that's ever been made. Thing is, it's made by filmmakers, and so it's written to be like a movie with a beginning, middle, and an end,
Right.
and it's all emotionally confined within itself, and it has a pacing around it that makes sense for a movie. And it just, I don't know, it just feels right as like someone who can kind of approach it a little bit more objectively. I'm not so much approaching it as a fan. There's a little bit of that in me too, mixed up. So I don't know if I can really be totally honest with my feelings about it, but I felt like, the Final Fantasy V movie, silly movie that it
I
is,
mean,
just like
the
it's still a movie. And especially Spirits Within, which is like, yeah, it has nothing to do with Final Fantasy. So every one of my podcast listeners is going to trash on it. But like, this movie is a better
okay.
movie
So here's
than
what I'd
these
say.
movies.
That's going back to the point about structure, where the Final Fantasy V thing is structured more like a movie. But the thing is, everything in that structure sucks. Is the
I,
problem?
I don't think it's a good movie. I just
Versus
think as
Advent
a Final
Children,
Fantasy movie, it's
Advent
better.
Children is a messier structure, but at least there's cool stuff within that messy structure. So that's where I view it. Like, there's nothing redeeming about the Final Fantasy V thing. It's just like everything about it sucks. Versus,
You don't think that steroided up Bart's isn't worth
no, it isn't. And there's way too many, like, you're talking about, like, the gross stuff and, like, 10 to all those panty shots in the 5 movie are just, like, disgusting. And
Fair enough. And you know what? We haven't seen it since we watched it at one time, so I might disagree with myself from 2014.
hey,
But
you watch it again. Well, I mean, this I I admittedly, I only watched it once, and I was like, nope, I'm good for the rest of my life, not needing to revisit this. It was terrible. For Advent Children, like, the animation is very cool looking, the fight scenes are cool, the music is cool, just like the story is trash, but like, you know, are you watching Rambo for the story?
There's parts that make me laugh, and they're not supposed to be funny with Advent
Right,
Children.
but
That's the problem
I
with
do
it.
watch a lot of cheesy action movies, and I laugh at them, and I'm having a great time. And I'm like, this
Yeah,
is
that's true.
how did
That's
someone
true.
think this was a good writing decision? Is often what I think when I'm watching action movies.
I think about like the direction of it. That's so wazoo and crazy and makes no sense. And it's just style over substance in Advent Children. Like the 90 shots of the sword when he puts it in the ground. It's like it's a guy putting a sword in the ground. Just put it in the ground. It's 1 or 2 shots max.
Yeah.
You
So
don't have to like pan across the sword 16 different times. Like
Final Fantasy V movie
that stuff will
is
take me out too.
Final Fantasy V movie. No style and no substance.
That's
Advent
true.
Children, at least there's style. So that's why
There's
I give it
style.
the
There's
edge.
style. That's right. There's style. I think there are better things about it. There's no doubt. So I don't know. I don't know. And it was just, and there's a difference here with Advent Children, and especially I think Advent Children Complete's like a
I
real
haven't seen Advent Children
dumpster
complete, so
fire.
like I'm going off just the theatrical
Uh,
cut. So I acknowledge
Complete
that
is
going
supposed
in.
to be the official version, but it has like 6 different more opening scenes, and they're just like shoved in, and they feel so wrong, and they make the movie bog down even more. Um, so it is like I don't the difference is that we saw the Final Fantasy V movie once, seen Advent Children many times before we even started the show. So we're familiar with all its flaws a little bit more
Right.
too. Um, and I don't know. I have changed a lot as a person, and my tastes have changed since 2014 when we started the show. Um, so I don't know if I
I'm
were
just
to
saying
rewatch it,
when
how it would
you
feel.
see like the glowing light coming out of that girl's butt, and you say to yourself, "This is better than Advent Children."
I do. I think it was more enjoyable. Like it felt like it was not a movie that was trying to take itself super seriously, which is definitely what Advent Children does, in like a bad, in like a way that hurts Advent Children.
I don't know. I think sometimes the like over
Cry.
seriousness can just be just amazing when just like you're just playing it completely straight, and that it's just everything around you is just like campy and silly. I don't know that there's something about just like a fun dumb movie and just
There
like the
is.
momentum that it takes you on. Like one of my favorite movies
I
is
don't think
Surf
Advent Children's
Ninjas.
one of them.
Have you seen Surf
But okay,
Ninjas?
no,
Early
I would
90s
put
movie.
Face Off in that
All
category.
right, all right. Early 90s movie. It's about teenagers who discover that they're secretly ninja princes and get like superpowers and also surf. Leslie Nielsen is the bad guy. Um, it's
Really?
Rob Schneider is the comic relief. And the soundtrack is all Van Halen esque electric guitars. Um, it's regularly considered to be like a dumpster fire of a movie, but it is so like early 90s cheese and just like fun, snappy momentum. Like so, I will admit the story isn't the be all end all for me. Sometimes just the fun factor can
Okay.
override story.
That's fair. And we don't always know like exactly what it is that makes a movie speak to us.
That tickles our
So
fancy.
yeah, I mean if I have to defend my Advent Children, I don't think I like it enough that I watched it many times, Greg. So it's not like
You've
I
watched it
hate
more
it.
than I have.
Um so,
Like I've
so
watched it like
like
twice, maybe three times.
but if I'm coming on to review it for a show, I feel pressure to review it as a movie because it's a movie.
But
And
if
I
you're
think
on a
that
Final Fantasy
the
show,
part
are you supposed to be reviewing it as a movie or as how it weaves
well,
into the greater franchise?
I feel like there's plenty of weeby Final Fantasy shows out there with like fans, fans where they just like
Fans who have played all the games,
they
like
got
you.
their they got their like yeah, I know. The thing is I have to defend myself as a fan of it. I've played every single one of those games and you haven't. No. Uh
I mean, I played like 40 or 50 of them, or it's like some huge number. Like you
there
saw my
is
list.
There's 50 games total.
All right, so
So there's
I played
but there
at
are
least 30.
fans that you meet at like fan fests and stuff. They have their blinders on. They think the series is perfect, and they come at it with like, oh, I love this thing, and so they're watching Advent Children is like, oh, I love the character of Cloud, and oh, I love Sephiroth, and it's just like it's a weird, totally different way of viewing a movie,
All right, and
and
I get
they're
that,
already viewing it that way.
but I think there's sort of there's a balance to it where like you can review it as like both a movie and also as how it fits into the grand franchise, which I think you have to kind of do both simultaneously. Like,
Which I don't think it does either.
I mean, it fails and it fails in both. It is
Kingsglaive
failing.
is worse.
I
But
like Kingslave probably the best of the Final Fantasy movies.
oh.
In
I
that,
think it's a bad movie, and I think it doesn't fit with 15, and I think it's way worse in that respect. I think it's better animated than all of them.
I think that the
Voice acting's better too.
all right, so I think it's more. I think it's a better like plot than Advent Children in terms of structure. Um, I think it is not as insufferably boring as Spirits Within and the Final Fantasy V thing. We're like, yeah, they're better, but they're also like snooze
Spirits
fests.
Within is slower. Yeah, I would say I could take that as a criticism against that for sure.
And I've never played 15 because I still haven't bought a PS4. But I watched the cutscenes and I watched Kingslave and like all the supplemental material as like trying to piece it together my own way. Um, and to me, based on not playing the game, it seemed to fit in fine. And I was interested in this as like, okay, this is kind of a generic hero character. But these are some fun action set pieces, and this is fleshing out that world a little bit more. So is it a great film? Absolutely not. But does it fit in with the supplemental material better than Advent Children or the FF5 movie or Spirits Within? Like, it fits in best with that world and is like an okay movie, like a B minus at best. It's like, it's fine. I wouldn't.
I think that's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. As
Ah,
a movie fan,
yeah,
I
well,
think it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
I thought
It's in
it
the
was okay.
bottom. It's in the bottom 50 for sure.
Oh man, bottom 50. I mean, I don't know, even like visually, because like the visuals are
Not
fun.
visually. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, like my satisfaction, my cathexis or my catharsis at the end of the film.
But like you
I
grew up in the
had
'90s, dude. You ever see
that
Evolution and shit like
that
that?
twist. That twist in my stomach is just like, oh, this movie is it. When you start noticing things about the plot, it's like you're not emotionally invested in this thing, and it's just, I think it just fails on almost every level except the visuals, which I thought the visuals were the best thing about it, which is not a good thing.
I mean that is fair, but the thing is, I can't see like putting it side by side those other Final Fantasy movies and saying that it's that much worse. Like Advent Children, like
Advent Children is a pretty like not great movie. I enjoy it though.
right,
That's the difference.
I think got it. That is the difference. But I'm saying in terms of like the like stuff
Like
contained
watching
within it.
Kingsglaive is a chore. A chore.
I'd rather watch Kingsglaive than Advent Children, and
Oh,
I
I mean, I think they're both bad, but
I mean yeah, they're neither are great, neither are great. All right, well we just did 2 hours and 12 minutes. Joe, plug yourself.
2 hours 12 minutes. You can wait for a movie called 13th Cross, which we both worked on. That'll be coming out later this year. If it comes out, I mean, I'll get the rights back in 5 years. So if it doesn't come out within 5 years, it'll be out. um, Other than that, you can check out my podcast. I got a pretty big Godzilla podcast called the Godzilla Podcast. I'll be recording another episode of that tomorrow, as of the day we're recording this. And then I have a Final Fantasy podcast. So you can see we started talking about Final Fantasy. We could probably talk about it a lot more. It's a future point. It's called Ultima Final Fantasy, the ultimate Final Fantasy podcast. And it's got a very long and storied history of me and Caleb Schweiss going through every single Final Fantasy game. And now we're going through games that are Final Fantasy adjacent. And we got like this master list we're going through, and we got like 20 something games left. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a very long ride. Um, and that's exciting. Then I have returned to another video game show called Nude Clan, which if you guys can stomach it, that is a weekly video game show. I would say it's like a weekly video game comedy show where we try to make the other person laugh. And you can check that out as well. So go check those out on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and keep listening to the Greg Troyan show for the for the 13th Cross announcement whenever that movie comes out.
I keep listening to the Greg Troyan show, and I need to check out that guest episode where how did you get someone to talk about Record Keeper for 49 minutes on your podcast?
Well, it wasn't a guest episode. It was it was one of those it was like the ones you did where it's like a game
mobile
we're not gonna play.
Yeah. No, I don't know how someone could talk about that for 49 minutes. That's
He could.
man, I'm like afraid to
And he
listen
did
to
a
it.
very good job. By the way, that guy might have the biggest following of any person who's ever been on our show.
Oh, nice. I gotta check it out. I've beaten that game.
He's part of a huge blog and a huge podcast on brewing beer.
Oh, okay.
Like a huge one. And
I haven't listened because I don't drink.
I looked at their Patreon page and I saw they had like 1,000 patrons, and I'm like, oh my goodness gracious.
All right, so I need to network with that guy.
Yeah.
Next guest on the Greg Troyan show.
Yeah, Brulo. Brulo is his avatar name. I don't know what his actual name is. I think he says it in the episode. But I can't think of it off the top of my head.
All right, well, that is the episode. Joe, thank you so much. Bye, Internet.
Bye-bye.